those years as a superhero in Marvel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 601, The First Infinity Stone. At midnight in Stark Villa, Peter Parker, wearing a bathrobe, sat in the office drinking coffee and listening to Anthony's retelling. At the same time, he also saw the mechanical armor on Anthony's hand. His brows frowned slightly, but as if he had thought of something, he stretched them out. Finally, he began to ponder. Anthony sat opposite Uncle Parker with some uneasiness, as quiet as a primary school student, because Peter Parker had great prestige in Anthony's eyes. The two had just done quite a lot of testing on this mechanical arm. Ordinary pistol bullets could not penetrate this thin layer of impact that was only a few millimeters thick, and assault rifles and heavy machine guns could not do it either. Anthony spent several hours studying the mechanical armor and also mastered some basic usage methods from the mechanical armor. The main built-in weapon was the laser launcher between the 10 fingers, which was amazingly powerful. The 700mm main battle tank level frontal armor could be easily melted to burn a hole, and the mechanical arm itself gave Anthony powerful power. Then with the help of a tablet computer that no one had ever seen. This mysterious hooded man might really be a member of a mysterious organization. Although Anthony and Peter Parker dared not make such a judgment, the facts were in front of them and it was difficult to refute. Otherwise, how to explain these things that transcend the times? There is no explanation. Now Peter Parker fell into deep thought, as if he was recalling something. The atmosphere was a little tense, making Anthony a little restless. In the end, Peter sighed deeply and said in a matter-of-fact tone, "What is coming will always come." Anthony did not understand what Peter said. He asked in confusion, "What are you talking about, Uncle Parker?" Peter looked at Anthony deeply and said in a calm tone, "You have always wanted to know about the murder of your parents and who is the murderer behind the scenes, right?" Anthony didn't know why Peter mentioned this, but he had answered this question countless times, "Yes." The voice was sonorous and powerful. Peter sighed and said, "I have been investigating many things for a long time, and after I have understood many mysteries of the past, I have only understood some things in recent years. And there are some things I have never wanted you to know, but I didn't expect that the people behind Howard still came to the door." From Peter's tone, it seems that there was really an organization or some accomplices behind Howard back then, but Peter didn't know what they did, and Howard's death seemed to be related to this. If Lee Ji heard what Peter said here, he would definitely jump up and say, "You must have misunderstood something. I was just bragging to Anthony. Who is behind Howard? I don't know at all." Anthony and Peter have obviously determined that the hooded man Lee Ji is the organization or accomplice behind Howard. Anthony immediately asked, "What exactly happened?" Peter glanced at Anthony, then closed his eyes and sorted out his thoughts. After a while, he slowly said, "This happened many years ago. The war broke out at that time, and I was still working at the Daily Bugle as a reporter. Howard Stark was one of the few people who knew my true identity. At the time, he was an advisor to the National Strategic Science Corps. The war on the front line was tense and they had a great advantage. The military wanted to adopt a transformation plan called Super Soldier. But Dr. Erkins, who was in charge of the experiment, died unexpectedly, and the whereabouts of the serum was unknown. So the Super Soldier project came to an end. When the war reached its most tense stage, Howard found me. He expected me to help and go to the front line to fight. I have told you many times about what happened afterwards. I agreed to Howard's request and finally joined the underground front secretly. Only a few people in the entire Strategic Science Corps knew of my existence, including Howard. I climbed the plane and used machine guns. I broke into the train and blew up the bridge. The end of that element is coming." Why did Anthony feel so rhythmic when listening to Peter's words? He shook his head and continued to listen. Peter continued, "In the later stages of the war, the Strategic Science Corps obtained a confidential intelligence. There was a secret experiment in the Eagle's Nest and they were studying a weapon that could turn the tide of the war." Anthony immediately said, Manhattan Project." Peter shook his head. "No, they at that time no longer had the spare energy to make an atomic bomb. But their scientists got a meteorite, to be precise, a special gem that fell from the sky." Anthony was stunned. What does a gem have to do with changing the progress of the war? Unless this gem is comparable to an atomic bomb. Peter looked at Anthony seriously and nodded. Yes, this gem is comparable to an atomic bomb. Anthony opened his mouth in surprise, but in the end he did not say a word. Peter continued, I went through a lot of trouble to get this gem back from the enemy, and finally gave it to your father. After losing this gem, the enemy lost the last means to turn the tide of the war, and finally lost the war. But for the Strategic Science Corps, strange things began to happen one by one. Since the end of the war, all members of the Strategic Science Corps who were involved in this matter began to die one by one. Your father led a 5-member team at the time, and in the end he was the only one left alive. So at his request, I helped him investigate the cause of death of those people, but the gains were not great. Then your father also died, you know. I suspect he also died because of the gem incident. Now this mysterious man suddenly appeared, holding this high-tech equipment, and keeps saying that he has a past with your father. Then I think the problem that has troubled us for many years can finally be explained. Anthony's throat moved. Uncle Parker, are you saying that everything is related to the gem you snatched back from the enemy? Peter nodded. Yes. Anthony continued to ask, so where is the gem now? Peter looked at Anthony and said, it has been with me all the time. I can't let go of this magical gem easily. Anthony suddenly became very interested. Magic? What kind of magic? Can I see it? Peter looked at Anthony and thought for a long time, and finally agreed, this is originally your father's relic. You are an adult and naturally have the right to know and see it. But you'd better sit on the stool and don't move. At the same time, tell me immediately if you feel uncomfortable. Anthony asked, why? What harm does this gem have? Peter was opening the secret layer behind his bookcase. After hearing Anthony's question, he said without turning his head, because everyone who sees this gem will inevitably fall into a kind of ecstasy, various music will sound in their minds, and then they will start dancing. Then they will dance over and over again until they die of exhaustion. Peter took out a small box made of special materials from the secret cabinet. He stared at Anthony and said seriously, we call this gem, dance. P.S. Ding ding ding. The first Infinity Stone is officially on the stage. Everyone, come and count the tickets. Chapter 602, Fooling, and then Fooling. When the strange hooded man visited Anthony's laboratory again in the evening, Peter Parker, Anthony's guardian, also appeared in Anthony's laboratory. Luigi had already expected this. After all, the Iron Man in this world is not the shrewd Tony Stark in his main world, but a young man who is still stubborn or paranoid, and he does not have absolute confidence in certain things. Especially when this matter involves his father, Anthony has a lot of calculations. This made Anthony find Peter Parker to advise him on this matter, and even took him directly to the laboratory to wait for his appearance. These were not beyond Luigi's expectations. But guessing is one thing, but posing is another. Just like now. When Luigi reappeared in the laboratory as a hooded man, he looked at Anthony and Peter Parker beside him and deliberately said in an unhappy tone, Mr. Anthony Stark, I don't think I asked you to invite Mr. Peter Parker to participate in this matter. This is just a private matter left by your father. Anthony was a little more courageous because Peter Parker was with him today. He shrugged and argued, but you didn't say that I can't bring anyone, Mr. Hood. And from a legal definition, Uncle Parker is still my guardian at least for now. This legal document was signed by my father and will not expire until next year. So it doesn't matter to me that he participates in this matter. My father's legacy, I think he has the right to know. Anthony looked very reasonable. But Luigi deliberately said, let me be clear, Mr. Anthony Edward Stark, we are not discussing how much legacy your father left for you in this world, but a more serious matter. Luigi's tone was very serious, and the mystery he showed when he suddenly appeared with the invisibility device just now made Peter Parker secretly frightened. But now Peter is almost more and more certain that Howard may have joined a mysterious organization that Peter does not know about during the period after the war when he got the dance gem. Because Luigi deliberately revealed some energy, for Peter Parker who has spider sense, this exposed energy almost made him explode. Because even a slight sense made him feel how dangerous the hooded man in front of him was. Peter believed that if the hooded man wanted to, he could easily kill himself and Anthony and destroy the entire Stark villa. Of course, in fact, Luigi did have such strength. And the reason why Peter can still stand here calmly is that although his spider sense told him that the man in front of him was dangerous, he did not raise an alarm to himself. This proves that the hooded man has no hostility towards himself and Anthony. Peter Parker believes in Spider-Sense very much. Sometimes he would rather believe in the intuition of Spider-Sense than the so-called objective facts, because in the past 30 years, he has proved countless times that Spider-Sense is truly correct. Since he sensed that Li Ji had no hostility and brought some unspeakable black technology, plus what Li Ji said that he had a history with Howard, Peter did not want to offend this mysterious guy. Because there was no benefit in offending such a person easily, what if what he said was true? He really just came to send back some of Howard's legacy in the mysterious organization? The hooded man first gave a magical tablet computer, and the hooded man said that he wanted Anthony to become a real Iron Man, and then gave Anthony a special mechanical armor. These things show that at least the hooded man did not show any malice, and it can even be said that he showed more kindness. From this analysis, Peter Parker really had no reason to offend the hooded man, and he even did not want to cause misunderstandings from the hooded man Li Ji. So when he heard Li Ji's bad tone, Peter Parker immediately stood up and said, "Please don't be angry, sir, it's just because I'm a little too worried about Anthony. I hope you can understand that this is just the mood of an elder. As a good friend of Howard, I entrusted Anthony to me before he died, and I need to be responsible for his entrustment," Peter said conscientiously. The hooded man stared at Peter Parker for a long time, as if he wanted to see through him completely. This made Peter feel like he was being stared at by a beast, and he felt a little uncomfortable. But he did not express his dissatisfaction, but tried his best to show his attitude. After a long time, the hooded man retracted his gaze. Peter felt as if he had passed a terrible test, and his back was soaked. He couldn't help but let out a long sigh in his heart. The hooded man pointed at Peter and said, "Mr. Peter Parker, Spider-Man. Well, don't look at me with that surprised look. I know you are the Spider. Although not many people know about this, I happen to be one of them. Howard originally recommended you to join our organization, but you didn't pass the vote in the first round of internal review." Li Ji made up a story seriously, and even he believed it a little. Anyway, Nightwalker Li Ji always lied without blushing or breathing. For Nightwalker, fooling someone is as easy as breathing. However, Li Ji's ability to deceive people again and again stunned Anthony and Parker. Spider-Sense can only sense whether something is good or bad and whether it is dangerous, but it cannot distinguish whether a person is telling the truth or not. Li Ji already knew this when he was with young Peter in the main world, so he had no psychological burden to deceive the old Spider-Man. After he said all these things, even the old Spider Peter Parker felt that what Li Ji said was true. He couldn't help but ask, "So, what exactly is the organization you are talking about?" Li Ji stared at Peter fiercely from behind his hood, and the energy was released instantly. When old Peter felt a little difficult to breathe, Li Ji retracted his gaze. He said indifferently, "An organization spanning the universe. This world is bigger than you think. Human beings are actually smaller. The mission of our organization is to ensure the continuation of mankind, and its purposes, our world should not perish. And there are many colleagues who are fighting for this. And in this world, the person we chose is Anthony's father, Howard Stark." Anthony grasped the key point in Li Ji's words. "You mean this world? What is this world?" Li Ji chuckled twice and said, "Peter Parker and you are just reserve members who have not really joined the organization. I am not obligated to tell you the secrets of these organizations. I just offer Anthony an opportunity. Whether you are willing to become Iron Man is a test for you. As long as you can pass the test and verify your ability, then you are qualified to join us and join this great organization." Anthony asked, "After saying so much, you still haven't told me your name and the name of the organization behind you." Li Ji nodded slightly. "Then this is my impoliteness. You can call me Nightwalker. And you can call our organization, League of Legends." Li Ji had proposed this name when the Illuminati was formed, but it was rejected by Tony Stark, saying that it was too rustic. This time, Li Ji mentioned this name to Anthony again. Anyway, it was all Li Ji's trick, so he could call it whatever he wanted. Anthony frowned when he heard the name Li Ji said, and whispered, "Too rustic." In terms of taste, Anthony was no different from Tony in the main world. Li Ji could only pretend that he didn't hear what Anthony said. He just continued, "So what do you think? Mr. Peter Parker, you can be Anthony's guardian, and even help him secretly. What our organization needs are heroes who can change the world, which is why we named it, League of Legends. Whether Anthony can do this is our test for you. From what I have seen in New York City, The gangs, criminals, warlords and ethnic forces in this world are too arrogant. This makes life difficult for ordinary civilians, so Anthony, can you do this? Luigi said this and looked at Anthony. Anthony curled his lips. I have been working hard in this direction, but it will take time. You have seen the steel armor I made. Luigi interrupted him with a wave of his hand. Give up those steel armors. You should understand that the real Iron Man I am talking about is not those broken ones. It is the one in the video I showed you. Anthony immediately said, but I can't make that kind of armor. Luigi said nonchalantly, I can provide a battle armor with similar performance to the one in the video. You can use it directly or study it. It's all up to you. Anthony opened his mouth in surprise, and Peter also seemed a little surprised, because he had also seen the video of the steel armor. He knew very well how powerful that kind of weapon was. And Luigi's nonchalant attitude seemed to be not giving an advanced battle armor, but a simple toy. In fact, for Luigi, what he gave was really the same as a toy. Now the steel armor in the main world is being fully upgraded. Tony has completely eliminated the traditional mechanical armor and replaced it with a nano-metal black and gold armor. Luigi took some time to return to the main world and sent a text message to Tony, asking him to customize a special armor. For Tony, this special armor can only be regarded as a toy. So he agreed to Luigi's request without asking, and let his smart factory start production. Because the production line is ready, there is no need to adjust and test it. It only took 5 hours for Tony's smart factory to produce such an armor. So Luigi generously said that as long as Anthony agreed to become Iron Man, he would get a brand new iron armor within 3 days of Earth number 1 time. The time difference between the Atrium dimension and Earth number 1 is 12 times. After hearing Luigi's guarantee, Peter Parker's heart moved. He felt that he might give it a try. Maybe there were things that could be helped by this magical Mr. Hooded Man. So Peter Parker took out a gem box from his chest pocket and said to Luigi, Mr. Nightwalker, have you heard of a magical gem? It has strange energy. Luigi touched his chin. There are many strange gems in this world and other worlds, and many of them have strange energy. I can't say that I have seen them all, or know them all. Peter continued to ask, but what is the strongest gem you know? Luigi almost didn't need to think. Infinity gems, of course. This kind of thing is too far away from us, and you don't need to understand it. Peter didn't care about Luigi's perfunctory answer. He just opened the gem box and showed the gem that was shining with purple light to Luigi and said, So, Mr. Nightwalker, what about this gem? When the purple light flashed into Luigi's eyes, he suddenly seemed to be in a dream. A special melody flashed through his mind. Let's swing together. Let me swing together. Chapter 603, Gemstone Acquisition and Natasha's Employment. Let's swing together. Let me swing together. The magic music started playing in Luigi's mind, and in an instant Luigi had the urge to dance. Even his legs began to shake uncontrollably, and then the rhythm began to swing. Even in an instant Luigi was thinking whether he should dance the national standard dance or the tango, although Luigi didn't know either of these two dances. But in his mind, he seemed to have learned it inexplicably, and there was an impulse telling him, it's better to dance, it's better to talk than to dance. It's better to dance, it's better to fight than to dance. In an instant, Luigi was almost controlled by the impulse of controlling this illusion, but in an instant, the Millennium Building blocks that Luigi had been wearing took effect, and he felt a burst of heat in his chest, and immediately regained control of himself. At the same time, he concentrated his mind and immediately drove away the terrible illusion. Although he regained control of his body, Luigi was embarrassed now, because he had just stood up from the chair and imitated Michael Jackson's opening dance of the song Bad. He extended his right index finger to the sky, placed his left hand on his lower abdomen, and slightly bent and opened his legs. He was just about to start dancing by twisting his waist, lifting his hips, and opening his hips. This was even more shameful than dancing the national standard dance or the tango. Although Luigi had recovered now and the purple light emitted by the gem had no effect on him after he controlled his mind, he didn't know how to end this scene. Anthony and Parker were still standing in front of Luigi in a daze. Peter Parker couldn't tell whether he forgot or did it on purpose, but he had not closed the seal of the gem box. Anyway, he faced Luigi with a sight-emitting purple light. The strong purple light was like the effect of some rotating neon balls commonly used in dance halls and discos in the 1970s and 1980s. Luigi kept dancing bad and looked at Anthony and the others. The scene was very embarrassing. The scene entered a strange quiet atmosphere. Nightcrawler has always boasted that he has the highest martial arts skills in the chef circle, the best cooking in the superhero circle, and the most thick-skinned person in both the superhero and chef circles. But this time, Lee Ji felt a little embarrassed for the first time, because he was still pretending to be awesome the previous second, but he broke the rules the next second. Ahem. Lee Ji pretended to cough, retracted his hand that was pointing at the sky and pretended to rub his nose. As for the hand on his lower abdomen, he pretended to massage his stomach. As for the legs that were already slightly bent and slightly open, he could pretend to squat to exercise his body. Peter Parker and Anthony cooperated and moved their eyes to other places. Peter closed the gem box, and Anthony walked to MK3 sample. As if he had researched something, he stood behind the MK3 and whistled a tune. Lee Ji followed Anthony's whistle and did the second set of national primary and secondary school students' radio gymnastics times are calling twice. After doing it twice, he took a deep breath. Then he coughed. Peter Parker and Anthony stood in front of Lee Ji again in tacit understanding, but no one spoke first. Anyway, everyone could only treat what happened just now as if it had never happened, and let it go with the wind. This was the best result. This silence lasted for another 3 minutes, and Lee Ji was the first to speak. He looked at Peter Parker and tried not to let other emotions in his tone and said, "So, what's in your box?" In fact, when Lee Ji was so embarrassed just now, Peter Parker was a little scared. Because it was really embarrassing, it was hard to say whether such a strong man would be angry with him because of such a face-losing thing. But when he took out the dance gem box just now, he actually felt a blessing in his heart. His spider sense vaguely told him that taking out the gem box would be good. But when he opened the gem box, Peter actually regretted it. Maybe after so many years, the spider sense finally wanted to pit him once. So when he was silent just now, Peter was still a little nervous. But hearing Lee Ji's tone now that he didn't pursue what happened just now, Peter was relieved, so he told everything about the dance gem. At the end, Peter felt a little strange and asked, "Didn't Howard tell you this?" Lee Ji shook his head directly. "No, Howard has never mentioned this to the organization. But maybe it's because of the bad timing, so he didn't have time to say it." Lee Ji openly admitted that he didn't know about this, which was easier to win Peter Parker's trust than making up a lie to find an excuse. Lee Ji suddenly became very interested in the dance gem. "This gem seems useless, but you have to know that this is just the energy emitted by the gem. Add the right method to stimulate the energy in the gem, or even expand or concentrate the energy. How strong can this gem be? For example, if Thanos invades the Earth one day, Lee Ji took out this gem from his arms, and then used all his strength to stimulate the dance ability in it to hit Thanos. So the universe overlord Thanos began to dance Michael Jackson's Be It uncontrollably. This picture is so beautiful, just imagining it in his mind, Lee Ji felt it necessary to try it. And the purpose of Lee Ji coming to this dimension is not to brush up on prestige or get some benefits. Now it seems that even if you can't gain much prestige in this dimension of Earth number 1, getting a dance gem is worth the money, at least this copy is worth it. So Lee Ji asked Peter Parker without thinking too much, "Can you give me this dance gem? I can exchange it with some suitable conditions." Lee Ji was pretty good, not getting something for nothing. But old Parker agreed to him immediately without thinking too much. "No problem, I'll give it to you now." He threw the gem box into Lee Ji's hand like throwing away a hot potato. As for why he did this, it was because the spider sense just sent him an intuition that handing this gem to the man in front of him would be of great benefit, and some bad things that could be felt in the dark would disappear. Or to be more precise, those bad things are borne by someone else. A dance gem actually bears a lot of cause and effect, and keeping this gem means bearing these causes and effects. If the gem is handed over to someone else, then the cause and effect will naturally be transferred. Or to put it in a more popular way, finally, a suitable person to take the blame has appeared. So old Parker really had no reason to refuse Lee Ji, so Lee Ji looked at the long gem box in his hand and felt a little depressed. Why did he feel that he was cheated by someone? Think about me, the great Nightwalker, who cheated Hydra, the Brotherhood of Mutants, Thor, Hell, Latveria, the Hand and the Society, Banner Hulk, and the US government in the Atrium. When have I ever been cheated? Exclamation mark. It doesn't exist. I must have thought too much. Lee Ji shook his head and accepted the dancing gem. As for letting Anthony be the Iron Man of this world, It was also decided. Luigi promised to deliver the new iron armor to Anthony in 3 days. Anthony was so happy that he couldn't sleep all night because he was a crazy robot control, just like some people are, lolly control, big sister control, or something. Some boys may not control lolly and big sister, but they control all kinds of industrial machinery. Some people are addicted to the power of industrial machinery. Especially the type of robots, whether it is the super series such as Mazinger Z and Gaia III or the real series such as 0080 Pocket Wars, there are many fans. And Anthony is obviously a deeply addicted, mechanical control, so much so that he was a little absent-minded when he went to work the next day and kept thinking about the new steel armor. When he went to pour coffee during the lunch break, he accidentally bumped into someone when he passed by. "Oh, sorry, I didn't pay attention just now." Anthony was a little sorry, because the coffee he just made was spilled on the person. Fortunately, it was winter and everyone wore thick clothes. If it was summer, a cup of hot coffee can burn people's skin and cause blisters. The person Anthony bumped into was a very beautiful girl, with beautiful red hair like May, a more delicate face than May, and a hotter body than May. The girl looked a little hurt by Anthony's bump. There were coffee stains on her white professional suit. Given the difficulty of coffee washing, this white suit was completely written off. Anthony was stunned for a moment when he looked at the beautiful girl, then he immediately pulled the girl up from the ground and said, "I'm really sorry, I was distracted just now. I think your clothes may not be usable. How much is it? I can compensate you." The beautiful girl just smiled and pointed to the identity badge on Anthony's chest and said, "Are the scientists in your laboratory used to thinking about problems while walking?" Anthony was a little stiff at the girl's action. He replied, "No, just occasionally. By the way, what's your name? I don't think I have seen you before." The red-haired beauty stretched out her hand in front of Anthony and introduced herself. "I just joined today. I am responsible for the logistics of the laboratory. We will deal with each other often in the future. You can call me Natasha." Anthony stretched out his hand and shook hands with Natasha in a hurry. "Well, I'm really sorry today, Natasha. How much is this dress? I can compensate you." Natasha looked at Anthony with some anger and amusement and said, "So, this is how you usually apologize to girls?" Anthony raised his eyebrows together. "Then what do you want?" Natasha crossed her arms and said, "In addition to compensating for the clothes, please introduce me to the laboratory so that I can understand my future work. This will be my apology." Anthony smiled and said, "That's a good idea." Chapter 604, The War Between Redhead Cancer and Women and the Innocent People Affected. Natasha Romanoff is a Soviet. She is a beautiful girl who was born under the red flag and grew up in the sun. Her father is a Soviet scientist and her mother is a rich lady from Europe. Since she was a child, Natasha has been deeply educated by her father about the great collectivism of the Soviet Union and the ideas from the great mentor. This spirit of communism must be carried forward. So Natasha was determined to build a utopian society in books when she was very young. She was only 12 years old when she set this ambition. At that time, she was ready to show up for communism. Born in a scientist family, Natasha has been well educated since she was a child and has considerable scientific literacy. When she graduated from high school, she was successfully admitted to Moscow University. But after studying at Moscow University, all kinds of new ideas impacted the little girl from Leningrad. What's worse is that her father suffered a great purge, so Natasha was also caught by the KGB from Moscow University and thrown into prison. The years in prison were very difficult, but Natasha also learned more things in there, things that could not be learned from textbooks. And from her heart, she was more firmly convinced that something must be wrong with this world. Politics is dirty and tainted noble ideas. She was determined to change all this. And to change all this, she had to get out of prison first. In the 4th year of imprisonment, a man wearing sunglasses and a windbreaker quietly captured this secret prison. His superb shooting skills and superb skills made him feel like he was in an empty space. Until he came to her, stretched out his hand and said to her, "Miss Natasha, I'm sorry I'm late." The person who came to rescue her was not a prince, but a friend of her mother's family in Europe. This man named Barton, nicknamed Hawkeye, had the same ideal as herself. Let the glory of communism shine on the world, including the Soviet revisionists, and they had to accept transformation. So two like-minded young people came together. They embarked on the road of changing the world. And on this road, they met another person who was moving forward, that is Nick Fury, white. Want to change the world? Then we must first change humans. Eliminate those magazines among humans. Only truly pure and noble humans are qualified to survive in this world. Nick White said. So Natasha joined the Hammer Bureau formed by Nick White from that time on, and began to help the leader carry out the human cleansing plan. For the purpose of the plan, making a little sacrifice is acceptable to Natasha. For example, seducing Anthony Stark. As a science and engineering dog, especially a single and unrequited science and engineering dog, Anthony is not very good at dealing with emotional issues. Just like his first two relationships, they were all inexplicably snatched away by others. Of course, part of the reason is that Anthony's boyish heart is inexplicably attached to May Parker, making him absent-minded about love. For this kind of single dog with pure feelings, Natasha can be said to be easy to catch. After the first meeting, she asked Anthony to take her to visit the laboratory, and at the same time rejected Anthony's request for compensation for clothes. She said that she wanted to go to a high-end restaurant in New York to taste food, but it was difficult to book a seat. Anthony then said that he could help her locate her as an apology, and then Anthony was inexplicably taken to the restaurant by Natasha for dinner. The whole rhythm followed the steps of this beautiful woman. Natasha's high emotional intelligence intentionally or unintentionally launched an offensive against Anthony, which made Anthony unable to resist. In essence, Anthony didn't hate Natasha very much. In addition to Natasha's beauty, the key is that she has beautiful long red hair, just like May's beautiful long red hair. Anthony has never forgotten the feeling when he first saw May, that afternoon, a beautiful girl with long red hair. Her flowing long hair shone with a dreamy luster under the refraction of the sun. By the way, Anthony's first two girlfriends were red-haired, but their red hair was not as beautiful as May's. And Natasha's red hair is even better than May's. Well, although I don't want to say this, but Anthony, you are actually a red-haired Cancer, right? But Anthony himself does not necessarily admit this, especially the conversation with Natasha in the past 2 days made him very happy. Because of her desire to protect Anthony, May often doesn't pay much attention to what Anthony says and thinks, which often hurts Anthony. But Natasha's emotional intelligence won't allow her to do such things. She always finds the right place to please Anthony. And being in a relationship with Anthony can't be hidden from other people in the company, such as May Parker. Now this beautiful girl of Peter was blocking the door of Natasha's office with some dissatisfaction. Natasha looked up at the girl in front of her who had beautiful red hair like herself, and she said, "It's me. I think you are May? Mr. Peter Parker's daughter?" "What can I say?" May said to Natasha unceremoniously, "I just want to remind you, Miss Natasha. You are only the director of the logistics department of the laboratory, and your workplace is in the logistics warehouse. Manage those bottles and jars and iron lumps. Please do your job well, don't run to the laboratory for nothing, and don't chat with the scientists in the laboratory for nothing. This will greatly affect the work efficiency of the laboratory." May put on a proud attitude. As Peter's personal secretary, she can indeed say these words. After all, Peter is currently the largest shareholder of the company, temporary. Natasha looked at May, who is as proud as a white swan, and said in a playful manner, "So, Miss May Parker, in what capacity are you speaking to me? As the president's personal secretary, conveying the president's intentions, or as Anthony's girlfriend, asserting your sovereignty to me?" May was caught off guard by Natasha's words. She tried her best to defend herself. What did you say? What girlfriend? Please don't joke around." But this defense sounded quite weak, and Natasha didn't say anything. She just smiled. After a long while, Natasha spoke up, "If it's not Anthony's girlfriend, then I think you have no right to interfere in my private affairs, Miss May Parker. I have done my job very well, and there have been no mistakes in the logistics department. As for who I talked to during my break, it is my personal right. You have no right to interfere. Even if I invite someone to dinner or invite someone to spend the night at my house, you have no right to interfere." May was speechless after being refuted by Natasha's words. It was 1965, and even the American atmosphere was very conservative. May really didn't know how to comment on Natasha's words, especially the one about to invite to stay overnight. After a long while, she angrily said, "Shameless." As she said that, she slammed the door and walked out. Natasha just smiled at May's leaving figure. Little girl, too naive. May Parker came out of the laboratory logistics department and happened to see Anthony, who was standing at the door of the laboratory with a happy face. She was even more angry when she saw Anthony's little face. Anthony didn't know what happened yet. He smiled and greeted May. "Hi, May." May Parker was furious when she thought that Anthony might have done something with Natasha. She walked in front of Anthony and stepped hard on Anthony's instep with the spikes of her high heels. Ah! The severe pain stimulated Anthony. He had just left the laboratory and was about to go to the water room to get some water, but was stepped on. He hugged his painful foot and jumped on one leg in pain. May stared at Anthony angrily, then said viciously, "Look at the way you smile. Shameless." After saying that, she did not give Anthony a chance to explain, and immediately pulled away. Only Anthony was left confused and didn't know what happened. "I was just smiling. When did my smile become a mean look? God in heaven or my conscience? This is a sincere and kind smile, okay? I smiled at you and you stepped on me. You still say I am shameless? What did I do to you?" Anthony was wronged and bitter. Originally, he was happy just because tonight, Nightcrawler would bring his long-awaited Iron Man armor. He didn't know how he offended May Parker inexplicably. "Oh, I don't understand May's heart. I probably won't be able to catch up with her in this life." Mechanical control. Single dogs are crying silently in their hearts. Chapter 605. Two old dogs. Just when Anthony was thinking about his special steel armor, someone was very angry in a luxurious manner on the other side of New York. Anthony was very familiar with the angry person, that is, his father's friend and the second largest shareholder of Stark Group, Abate. Anthony once regarded Abate as his father's murderer, although according to Peter Parker's various investigations, Abate did not do so. But Anthony still had a gap with his former uncle Abate after that. In fact, this is not difficult to understand. Sometimes children will always stubbornly believe that those who they think are good people must be good people, and those who they think are bad people must be bad people. Although they will be relieved later, the contradictions in the meantime have been buried. Besides, Abate is not a harmless guy. Since Howard Stark's death, Abate has taken the shares of Stark Group from Anthony and become the major shareholder of Stark Group. Considering the board of directors and personal factors, Abate's behavior is understandable because Anthony is too young. He was only 12 years old at the time. The board of directors could not agree that such a child would become the largest shareholder of the company. For Obadiah, controlling Stark Group and going further is his lifelong dream. Before, he had Howard on his head, and he could not do anything. Because Howard does have super personal charm and leadership. Compared with the talented Howard, Obadiah is willing to step down. But when Howard died, his son, a 12-year-old boy, also wanted to ride on his head, which Obadiah was unwilling to accept. Obadiah initially adopted a conciliatory policy towards Anthony, hoping that the 12-year-old Anthony would become his puppet. Of course, as Anthony's uncle, Obadiah did not mind spending some money to support him. If Anthony was obedient and law-abiding, Obadiah could raise Anthony as his own child and make him a rich second generation. If one day he was too old to do anything, it would not be unacceptable to hand over power to Anthony again. After all, Obadiah was not married and had no children. But the appearance of Peter Parker destroyed all of Obadiah's plans, and the conciliatory policy completely failed. He was getting further and further away from controlling the Stark Group. However, when Peter Parker first appeared, it also caused dissatisfaction and criticism from many other people in the board of directors, because for the bigwigs of the board of directors, it was unacceptable for Peter Parker to become a leader out of nowhere. Many of them began to fight with Peter openly or secretly. And Abate watched all this with a cold eye, because he knew that the fun of watching mud wrestling was sitting in the audience. If he went to wrestle, it would definitely not be a pleasant feeling to get covered in mud. Now that someone has jumped down to wrestle with Peter, he naturally won't do it himself. Whether he wins or loses, or both lose, he will not lose anything. So for the past 10 years, Abate has been watching the fire from the other side of the river, sitting on the Daya watching the bigwigs in the board of directors, or the capitalists outside who are eyeing Peter Parker. Abate believes that one day Peter Parker will fall, but Peter Parker's ability is beyond expectations. No matter what kind of opponent he has won, whether it is open or secret. Peter Parker is expanding his authority step by step. When Abate came back to his senses, he was horrified to find that he did not even have the ability to wrestle with Peter Parker. Picking up bargains is a good thing, and everyone likes it. But if you hold back on picking up bargains, and do things with the attitude of not taking action unless there is a bargain, then you may be the one who suffers. For example, a baddie is like this. In 10 years, Peter Parker has actually grasped the power of the company. He stepped on those former opponents one by one. And this is not what a baddie is most worried about. What worries him most is that Peter Parker did all this not for himself. He did not really usurp the power of the company, but to lay the foundation for Anthony. If a person is too selfish, then a baddie can always find his flaws. But if Peter has a clear conscience for everything he does, then a baddie will have no way. And now there is a thorny problem in front of a baddie. That is, in the will written by Howard, Peter's 10-year term of custody is about to expire. Do you say this is a good thing? No, no, no. This is a very bad thing for a baddie. Because Anthony is about to take over, as long as it is February 1966, Anthony will automatically become the largest shareholder of the company. From then on, everything will be suppressed by Peter with force, and there will be a reasonable explanation for things that are not justified. As for old Parker, don't think he will leave obediently, given the relationship between Anthony and the Parker family. In the future, this old dog will continue to stay in the company to work, and even instruct Anthony on how to run the company behind the scenes. The situation will only be worse than it is now. Because a baddie not only has to face the old dog, old Parker, but also the little dog, Anthony. He can't resist the attack of two dogs. A baddie, who has been sitting on the fishing line for 10 years, has not even caught a catfish, and now even the fishing platform is about to be overturned by two dogs. Can he tolerate such a thing? Obadiah has never thought about retiring and going home to be a rich man. Just like in the main world, a baddie colluded with the 10 Rings to eradicate Tony. In Earth 1, a baddie also colluded with a group of real gangsters, and he wanted to get rid of Anthony and Parker. After watching the mud wrestling in the audience for so many years, a baddie finally had to jump out and fight. In front of a baddie was a middle-aged white man with a fierce expression on his face, and one eye was blind and he was wearing an eye patch. If anyone has seen the wanted poster posted in New York, most people can tell who he is at a glance. He is the one-eyed Nick Fury, white. A baddie knew that this guy was a gangster who had killed many people, and he had a group of equally fierce guys under him. So a baddie found Nick, white, and the black means of the office could not deal with Parker. A baddie needed a really strong guy. Of course, he didn't know that Nick, white, had formed the Skyhammer organization, otherwise a baddie would definitely not want to have anything to do with such a person. But now, a baddie took out a suitcase and placed it in front of the white one-eyed dragon. Obadiah pushed the suitcase forward and opened it at the same time. The suitcase was filled with colorful US dollars. Here is $3 million in cash. After the task is completed, I can give you another $3 million. Help me kill Peter Parker's family and Anthony Edward Stark. The time is before Christmas. I hope I have reason to celebrate this Christmas. Obadiah said in a low voice. The white one-eyed dragon looked at the large box of money in front of him but did not say a word. He just used the tip of the dagger to pick the dirt under his nails. This silent atmosphere lasted for a minute, and Obadiah kept staring at Nick, white. Finally, Nick said, money is not the only condition, a baddie. Money alone is far from enough. We need other conditions to take action. A baddie's face twitched. I have helped you to plant that woman in Stark Group before. Nick Fury, white, you know, to achieve your goal, we need enough intelligence. That is not a condition, it is something you do for yourself. A baddie thought for a while, and finally asked, what else do you want? Nick smiled, don't worry too much, a baddie. I don't want anything else from Stark Group, I just want some equipment. Some of the Soviet Union's allies are willing to spend a lot of money on the black market to buy some equipment from Stark Group. Nick's explanation made sense, and this condition did not arouse a baddie's vigilance. Of course, he didn't know that Nick didn't want these equipment for the so-called sale to Soviet allies through the black market. The only purpose of Nick's wanting these machines and equipment was because before being arrested, Smith secretly told Nick that if he wanted to maximize the power of the dancing gem, he would need these equipment to match it. The two old dogs, each with their own ulterior motives, were calculating against each other. A few hours later, in Stark's New York villa, Leegi came to this dimension with a steel armor that was many years ahead of this era. And Anthony Stark, the steel lover, had been looking forward to it for many days. Chapter 606, Warframe and Multiverse Hero Organization Plans and Preparations. Leegi brought a special Iron Man armor. It was customized by Tony Stark in the atrium. Because of the technological level here in 1965, many places have made certain compromises. But even so, this armor has already been a killer weapon that spans several eras, and it is not an exaggeration to be hailed as the strongest weapon in the world. There is no need to mention the color matching, the golden red color matching, whether it is the Atrium or the Earth number 1. Stark's in both dimensions like this kind of flashy color matching. It's just that Stark in the Atrium is openly showing off, while Anthony here is taciturn. This armor adopts a modular design process. This is the improvement method in the early stage of the second stage that Tony Stark entered when he was researching and improving the Iron Man armor. After that, Tony also carried out the third improvement stage of modularization and remote control a weapon package, and then to the fourth stage of adaptive active modification. After that, it was the fifth stage of nano-metal adaptive. Now it is the sixth stage of nano-metal adaptive plus active plastic improvement. The combat power and combat capability of the black gold nano armor used by Tony Stark now in dealing with changing environments and complex conditions are incomparably stronger than the first stage, Mk3 designed at the beginning. The second stage armor made of traditional titanium alloy has long been an obsolete product of Tony, so he has no objection to helping Lee Ji make such an armor. He is not worried about the so-called technology leakage. Because the latest generation of nano armor actually has nothing to do with the technology of traditional armor. The overall style of the armor brought by Lee Ji presents a feeling similar to that of a samurai armor, which is more sturdy and huge than ordinary steel armor. There is no way, because Anthony on Earth number 1 has not developed something like the arc energy reactor. And for all steel armors, this is the most critical energy supply. So the energy supply of this armor comes from the arc II super battery. This is the result of Tony's universalization of arc energy. In the new energy pilot building in Manhattan, this module of super batteries is used to power the power, replacing the traditional power grid. A super battery the size of a pencil case weighs more than 30 kilograms. This special armor uses 3 of these super batteries as a power drive. It can meet the needs of 12 hours of use at a time. Lee Ji also prepared 20 spare batteries for Anthony to facilitate his rotation. As for charging, if there is no high-power charging of the arc energy reactor, the speed will be much slower. On the Earth in the Atrium, it only takes about 2 hours to fully charge a super battery. But in New York in 1965, if you want to charge a super battery, you need to make large-scale modifications to the charging equipment, and the speed is still very slow. It is expected that it will be good to fully charge a battery in 10 days. When Lee Ji brought this armor to Anthony and Peter, he told them all the performance and characteristics of this mecha. The maximum flight speed is Mach 3.5, and it carries 3 micro-missiles and 100 tracking bullets. The main weapons are the energy cannons on the palms and chest. At low power, it can fire 200 times. At high power, it can use up all the energy in the battery at once. The titanium alloy armor and the built-in buffer layer are enough to deal with any caliber tanked main gun in the world today. Even if the driver in the armor is hit head-on, he will be safe. In addition, in order to make up for the lack of energy supply, an external power backpack is designed on the back of the warrior armor. It has a micro-high-power internal combustion engine inside. I remember that, Anthony, you have produced special oil-hydrogen mixed fuel. The backpack has an external nozzle and flying gliders, and can also mount 2 rotary Gatling guns to make up for the lack of vitality. At the same time, the warrior armor also has close combat functions, but this requires the operator to have a certain level of combat to work. The flight control chip, fire control chip, and motion capture chip are all integrated inside the armor. Lee Ji didn't think much of these performance parameters, because compared to the iron armor used by Tony in the Atrium, these digital levels are completely worthless. In particular, this armor does not have Jarvis's intelligent control system, but only a castrated control system. And it also needs an external power backpack. It looks like the Strike Air Combat Backpack in the Japanese cartoon Gundam Seed. From the point of view of Lee Ji and Tony, this is a very outdated design. But for the world in 1965, it is already too strong to be added. Anthony and Peter were stunned. Especially Anthony. As a mecha control, Lee Ji said that all this is better than he imagined. But at the same time, he also secretly remembered a few key points, that is, the energy used by this armor seems to be incompatible with the petrochemical energy commonly used in the world now. Charging the super battery is also a hassle, and he doesn't know the supporting maintenance of the armor in the future, and the smelting method of titanium alloy armor. Li Ji did not give him these things, because if these technical data were printed on paper, they would fill up the entire Stark Villa. Moreover, Li Ji did not think he needed to do that step in detail. He pointed to the warrior-type armor beside him, which was about 2 meters high and much stronger than ordinary armor, and said to Anthony, "Of course, this armor is not invincible. There are still many logistical problems, maintenance problems, energy problems, and so on and so forth. I can't arrange everything for you like a nanny. If there's anything missing, please find a way yourself. If you are really that smart, I think you should be able to think of a way. Just regard this as a test given to you by the organization. League of Legends is not so easy to join. Only if you pass these tests, you are qualified to become one of us," Li Ji said seriously. Anthony nodded vigorously, and then he said to Li Ji excitedly, "So, can I try to drive this armor now?" Li Ji nodded. "I'll give it to you, then it's yours. But I think you'd better read the manual I gave you first. Understand how the flight control, fire control and motion capture system inside the armor work." So in the spacious underground laboratory of Stark Villa, Anthony read the instruction manual preliminarily. Within an hour, he started to make this samurai armor move. Tony's design of this armor did refer to the design of many Japanese or Asian samurai armor. Although it looks bulky, it is flexible unlike its appearance. Li Ji watched Anthony excitedly start to get familiar with the use of the armor, and his face under the hood smiled slightly. When going to the atrium dimension to get the armor, when crossing the dimensional gap, Li Ji seemed to suddenly think of something. Maybe when Anthony and Peter first made up a fake organization like League of Legends, Li Ji was just in a momentary excitement. He didn't think much at the time. But after 3 days, Li Ji's thoughts gradually opened up. Maybe League of Legends is not a bad idea. If we have to keep a backhand in everything to face unpredictable dangers, then I will form a controllable armed force across the multiverse in different dimensional worlds, which may be a very good choice. When Li Ji began to think about the feasibility of this matter, his brain could not help but think in this direction. This will be a very useful backhand, a secret armed force, or even a retreat for the entire Earth. And there is no need to worry about leaks, because only I can cross the multidimensional dimensions so easily. Li Ji looked at the letter D engraved on the back of his guardian pendant. Li Ji's heart moved. Maybe the profession of guardian is not as simple as Master Ancient One said. And the world of Earth #1 will be his first experiment. Skyhammer Organization Meeting. Nick Fury has decided to use force to kill the Parker family and Anthony. In fact, the original plan was similar to this, but because all the members of the Flying Fire gang who helped him with the evacuation work died, this plan was shelved. But when Abade offered to help, the feasibility of this plan surfaced again. Especially when Natasha and Anthony were involved, the matter became easier to handle. Are we sure we want to do this? I think it's a foolproof way to let Natasha get close to Anthony and then wait for an opportunity to steal the gem. Hawkeye Barton didn't oppose the plan of a strong attack, but he didn't support it either. Nick glanced at him and said, "This is a different time. And the longer it takes, the greater the possibility that we will be exposed. Parker seems to have a special ability and can always predict the future, although many times this can be attributed to luck. But I don't want to gamble on luck. Natasha." Nick turned his gaze to his beautiful subordinate. "How did you deal with Anthony?" Natasha touched her red hair and said, "An innocent boy. I used the excuse that it was difficult to buy air tickets to Los Angeles during Christmas. I would go to Los Angeles to visit my grandmother at Christmas. So he agreed to let me take their private plane back to Los Angeles. It just so happens that the Parker family and Anthony are flying back to Los Angeles for Christmas, and they also have to visit the Howard's graves." Natasha said, "But when should we take action to be absolutely safe? Peter Parker is not easy to deal with. There are risks on the way to the airport and when getting off the plane." Nick grinned. "Then let's do it in the sky." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 607, Disappointing Drama. Christmas is to the Americans what the Spring Festival is to the Chinese. Whether it is a reunion, a dinner party, or exchanging gifts between relatives and friends, many of these aspects are the same as in China. Some people think that the trend of the Spring Festival and the Spring Festival is limited to China, and that it is a unique family culture in China. In fact, this is not the case. Looking around the world, family is the mainstream cultural value orientation. Regardless of the East and West, the North and the South, and regardless of race and skin color, anyone who agrees with the most basic concept of human nature will have the concept of family value orientation. It's just that each country or each nation expresses their love for family values in different ways. But the core of it has not changed much. Especially in the United States in 1965, when the Apollo program had just passed 4 years and humans had not yet set foot on the moon. Human society was still full of curiosity and all about the extraterrestrial world. People of this era were still very devout in their beliefs. Conservative Catholic families and even some strict Puritan families were common in the United States. In this era, no one shouted human smuggling and messed up the world's values. They even went to America to get gorillas, which led to the emergence of AIDS. In this era, Christmas was spent at home, with family, sitting under the Christmas tree and eating the Christmas dinner made by mother. Sitting by the fireplace, watching the snow outside the window and the Christmas programs on the 12-inch small TV. Children of this era still believed in the existence of Santa Claus, and believed that the gifts in their bedside socks when they woke up in the morning were sent by Santa Claus. Just like Peter Parker, he was born in 1915. He is now 50 years old. He has experienced 2 world wars, a Great Depression, 4 U.S. presidents and several political crises in his life. He has seen too many things, such as the hungry workers who lost their jobs during the Great Depression. Those who relied on magazines, newspapers and books in public libraries, and spiritual food to numb themselves and forget about hunger and depression. Those figures filled almost the entire 1930s and Peter Parker's entire adolescence. This affected his career choice in the first half of his life, becoming a reporter and writing things that can inspire people, thus encouraging people to survive the hard times of the Great Depression. This was Peter Parker's wish. Now, sitting on the Stark Group's private plane, looking at the white clouds outside the window, Peter was full of thoughts. He must go back to Los Angeles on Christmas, and he will take Anthony to visit the graves of Howard and his wife. Peter is an old-fashioned person and respects tradition very much. In this regard, he has educated Anthony very well. At least Anthony has cultivated his character of valuing his family and respecting the wishes and lives of others. From this point of view, Tony in the A-Train world before his transformation is not as good as Anthony on Earth number 1, because the two received completely different educations at the most critical stage of their lives. Just like Lee Ji thinks Anthony's personality is more likable than Tony. A little stubborn, but not paranoid. He is very smart and not arrogant, with a passionate sense of justice. If Lee Ji wants to evaluate Anthony, he is a template for the protagonist of a Japanese comic who transforms into Superman, or Super Robot. Especially after he gave him a samurai armor, he became more like that protagonist. Well, especially when dealing with emotional issues. Lee Ji was thinking this in the middle and back of Stark's private plane. This private plane was bought when Howard was alive. It is a wide-body large aircraft of Boeing, not the small special passenger aircraft produced by Gulfstream that is common in later generations. After appropriate modifications, the number of passengers on this plane can reach 35. There are also places to sleep and shower. There is even a simple kitchen in the back. Although it is impossible to cook with open fire. But there are heating tools similar to induction cookers for cooking. As Stark's most important chef at present, Lee Ji accepted the invitation to work on Christmas. He agreed to make a Christmas dinner for the Parker family and Anthony. So he is also on the plane now. It takes several hours to fly from the East Coast to the West Coast, and the time in between is just enough to eat a meal. Lee Ji just made something casually on the plane because the conditions are so simple. However, because of the use of the legendary kitchen utensils, which is like cheating, the dishes made are still delicious, anyway, much better than ordinary airplane meals. Just like now, when he handed the tender fried chicken breast to the Parker family and Anthony, he still received unanimous praise. Of course, there was another person who was familiar to Lee Ji but not to him. That beautiful woman named Natasha. She seemed to have gotten on the plane through Anthony's relationship. She praised Lee Ji with a smile on her face, and Lee Ji just smiled in response. The atmosphere in the cabin was a little awkward. The main source of the awkwardness came from the Cold War between May and Anthony. Both of them would talk to other people, but not to each other. It was like elementary school students getting angry at each other and saying, "I will never play with you again." Lychee observed the reason for the anger and found that it was probably because of Natasha. Parker and Mary never over-control Anthony in private love and feelings. This is a very private matter. They just need to control May. Maybe Parker did it on purpose? Maybe he didn't want May and Anthony to have a relationship at all. Lychee looked at Parker, who was sitting in the front of the cabin and reading the newspaper calmly, and thought maliciously, maybe this guy is a daughter control. But Lychee was too lazy to care about such a thing. He just went straight to the back area of the plane to rest after making lunch. After lunch, Peter Parker read the newspaper for a while, and then looked at Natasha, who was chatting and laughing with Anthony. A smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. He waved his hand and motioned Anthony to come over. Anthony walked closer and asked, "Uncle Parker, what's the matter?" Peter Parker didn't say anything but took Anthony to the front of the cabin. He didn't say until he was away from the others, "I think you should try the flight mode of the new armor." Anthony was a little confused. "What? I only flew a few times. Now the armor is still in the cargo hold under the cabin." "Uncle Parker, you don't want me to start flying from the plane now, do you?" Peter Parker nodded. "Why not?" In the clouds at an altitude of 50,000 meters, 10 Sabre F-86 fighters were flying to the designated airspace, preparing for an ambush. The signal source emitted from the Stark Group's special plane was commanding and coordinating these 6 Sabre fighters. When Anthony went to the cargo hold on the lower floor, Parker took his wife Mary to the rest area to let Mary take a nap. May, who had never given Natasha a good look, sat next to Natasha. "Ms. Natasha, can you tell me who is behind you?" May held Natasha tightly with one hand. Lychee, who had been hiding at the end of the cabin, secretly preparing to watch the two beauties quarrel, was a little disappointed. "I thought it was a palace fight or a family fight, but it was still the same old drama of good and evil villains? A little disappointed. P.S. This small copy is almost finished, probably tomorrow." Chapter 608, Iron Man's official debut. "Ms. Natasha, I think you should have a good talk now. Who is the person behind you?" May held Natasha's hand tightly. But Natasha showed a shock and astonishment. Her expression seemed to completely not understand what the other party was saying. "Ms. Parker, please let go, you hurt me." "I don't know what you mean." Lychee, who was hiding in the back of the cabin watching all this, had some sense of understanding. Because in other versions of the story, Natasha had seduced Tony before. And it almost succeeded. And in this world, it seems that Natasha has seduced Stark again. If she is given a little time, with the innocence of Anthony in this world, who knows what she will deceive him into. May, who was holding Natasha, said directly, "Natasha, although you did it very secretly, you actually entered the company through a badass relationship. Do you think we don't know anything?" May said lightly, as if she knew everything. "What is your purpose in approaching Anthony?" Natasha suddenly laughed softly when she heard May's question. "So, in the final analysis, Miss Parker, you are still resentful because the man you like was taken away, so you want to make trouble for me. So, you like Anthony so much? But you dare not say it out loud?" Natasha asked. At the same time, she gently lifted May Parker's chin with one finger, and put her mouth close to May's ear, and said in a slightly hoarse but sexy voice, "Do you need me to teach you how to control a man?" As she spoke, Natasha stretched out her tongue and licked May's earlobe vaguely. The hot air exhaled from Natasha's mouth sprayed on May's neck, hot and moist. May could even feel that Natasha seemed to have her earlobe in her mouth with her plump lips. As a very conservative girl, Natasha's actions brought great stimulation to May. It was also that Natasha was not only a killer against men, maybe she could also take on women. Just like May now, Natasha made her a little distracted. She even felt a little dizzy. Lychee, who had been secretly watching all this in the back warehouse, was also greatly stimulated. What was going on? Originally thought that the main wife caught the mistress, and then there was a big drama of Baizu's quarrel. As a result, the style suddenly changed to a spy drama between two women. I was just about to watch a battle of wits and courage between beautiful female spies. As a result, the style changed again. Two beautiful red-haired girls began to rub their ears together, turning it into a forbidden drama. This was a bit too exciting. Lychee hid in the back warehouse and continued to secretly watch the changes in the situation. As for stopping it, Lychee felt that this matter should be left to May Parker to solve by herself. After all, this was a test in her life, and she needed to break free by herself. If she was really in danger, he would naturally take action at the first time. Li Ji swore on his honor that he was definitely not doing it for a few more glances. These things that happened between the stunning female villain and the beautiful female decent were not attractive at all. May felt a little dizzy. She wanted to push Natasha, who was leaning against her, but found that her body had no strength. She was really dizzy now. May was shocked and was afraid that she had just been hit. Natasha's seemingly frivolous behavior just now was intentional. Her seemingly heavy breathing was actually a special method to spray nerve anesthetic gas towards May. May was flustered by Natasha's words just now, and she was hit without paying attention. Now May was dizzy and could no longer control Natasha. Natasha flipped her wrist and got out of May's control. She didn't say much, and directly took out a parachute from the gift she was carrying and put it on herself. "My dear May, I'm sorry, but it seems I need to go first." Natasha was ready to leave after she finished all this, and blew a kiss to May before leaving. But before she could take a few steps, she was caught by another strong and powerful hand. Peter Parker, who was supposed to accompany Mary for a nap, stood behind Natasha. After he caught Natasha, he didn't say much nonsense. As an old spider who is very experienced and knows how to deal with enemies, Peter instantly wrapped Natasha's body with white spider silk. Just like a spider catching prey, he tied her up and made her unable to move. "I think you'd better stay now, Natasha. About the people behind you, I think you need to give us an explanation." The old spider smiled like a fox. In fact, when Natasha just joined the company, especially after contacting Anthony, he began to care about Natasha. Because the spider sense gave him a warning, this intuition is never wrong. So the secret investigation of Peter has never stopped. Maybe Nick knows that Peter is the Black Spider, but they actually knew less than half of the Black Spider's abilities. Peter in this world was not a good man. He had long wanted to get rid of a bad A, and there was no reason to be on guard against thieves. He had always suspected that someone was coveting the dancing gem. The appearance of Natasha made him even more suspicious of whether there was a mastermind behind this. He might be able to use this opportunity to catch all these guys in one fell swoop. Of course, Peter would not take such a risk before he got the new iron armor. But these days, Anthony has become familiar with the operation of the iron armor. Especially after Peter saw the power of the iron armor, the so-called danger has been reduced to the lowest. Natasha was tied up by Peter's spider silk and had no ability to resist. She was a little anxious now because she had just issued an order to prepare for the attack. Most of the Sabre F-86s in the sky were ready to attack. If the plane was hit and exploded, then if she didn't have time to leave now, she would probably die. Natasha said anxiously, "Peter Parker, you don't know who you are dealing with." Peter smiled, "I think at most it's just the remnants of the Gestapo. I killed a lot of those guys back then." Natasha glared at Peter, "You defeated them in the air with a civilian airliner." Peter was a little proud. "No, we have some secret weapons." Li Ji, who had been hiding in the back warehouse to watch the show, roughly guessed the whole story. Li Ji smiled. He originally wanted to see if he had a chance to go out and show off, but now it seems that he doesn't need to. "If I'm not wrong, I'm afraid all the X will be shown by the Iron Man, who is flying in the sky now." Li Ji touched his chin. Maybe he should have a celebration banquet. He didn't know if the iron armor Easter egg he specially pointed out for Anthony had started to work. The Sabre F-86 team at an altitude of 50,000 meters was ready to attack. Led by Hawkeye. A big point in the ambush in the air was that Obama got a batch of advanced fighters on the market, namely the Sabre F-86. And he used part of his own strength. He processed these planes to make it difficult for radar to detect them. Perhaps this is the earliest prototype of stealth aircraft in the world. To deal with a civilian aircraft, using a fighter plane is a piece of cake for Hawkeye. Descend a little altitude, open the fire control safety, and prepare to launch missiles. Hawkeye gave orders in an orderly manner. At the same time, a golden red steel armor carrying the assault air station backpack and siege suddenly appeared on the left side of the Sabre team. What is that? A member of Hawkeye's team has already discovered this armor. It looks like it has been discovered. This is the Iron Man robot researched by Anthony Stark, just a big toy. Hawkeye frowned and said, "The matter seems to have been exposed, but the mission still has to continue." Because he knows that the Iron Man robot researched by Anthony is a useless waste. Johnny Blaze of the Flying Fire Gang has destroyed at least 4 of these things. And he used a rifle to deal with it. With machine guns and missiles, it's like playing to fight this. First, shoot down the robot, then attack the plane. Hawkeye gave his order. The Saber Squad has already started to turn, and the machine guns and missiles are ready. In the iron armor, Anthony was as excited as if he had been injected with chicken blood. It was not only because Peter told him that there might be enemies in the air before takeoff, and asked him to prepare for air combat. It was not just because he was excited about operating the iron armor for the first time in actual combat. There was another reason. When he just turned on the air combat mode of the armor and adjusted safety to actual combat, a low but majestic music began to sound from inside the armor. The sound slowly went from low to high, and the rhythmic drum beats were exciting. Ding dang dang dang, Anthony was as excited as if he had been injected with adrenaline. In an instant, he felt like a man with his own BGM. In my BGM, no one can beat me. If there is, then just turn up the volume of the BGM. Anthony looked at the Saber Squad in the distance, and he was not nervous at all. The nervousness of the first actual combat was diluted by the majestic BGM. He really wants to know what the background music is now. Of course, if the timeline goes smoothly, maybe Anthony will have a chance to know it in the future. If he plays Tom Clancy's Hawk and Ace Combat in the future. Chapter 609, The Correct Way to Show Off. Hawkeye led the Saber Fighter Squadron, looking at Anthony wearing Iron Man armor in the distance, and despised this flying iron barrel as a waste. But he did not pay close attention to the fact that this flying armor was no longer a pile of iron barrels that could be destroyed by a group of gangsters with rifles. Instead, it was a warrior flying in the sky. Just when Hawkeye regarded Anthony as a waste, Anthony had always regarded Hawkeye's team as a pile of snacks. Free shooting. Hawkeye had already issued the order of free shooting, just a few kilometers away. Because the F-86 is not just an aircraft equipped with traditional machine guns. As one of the earliest jet fighters, the F-86 uses many new technologies of the U.S. military. For example, the air-to-air combat missile that has only been developed for a few years. This is the killer weapon of the U.S. Air Force. 2 years after the air-to-air combat missile came out, NATO countries and Warsaw Pact countries had an air combat friction. The MiG-15 and the F-86 had a fight in the sky. The number of both sides is equal, but the performance of MiG is slightly better than that of F-86, flying a little faster and a little higher. In the era of traditional machine gun dogfights, F-86 has no advantage over MiG. But in that battle, F-86 brought special weapons. That is the newly equipped air-to-air combat bomb. So a close-to-massacre air battle began. When MiG-15 just began to take advantage and prepare to climb, F-86 launched missiles outside the range of the machine gun. The Warsaw Pact pilots who had not yet reacted looked at the incoming missiles and suddenly accelerated to escape the attack range. But this generation of missiles uses thermal-sensitive missiles. The more you turn on the afterburner, the easier it is for you to be targeted by missiles. So without seeing the power of missiles, the pilots of Warsaw Pact countries were beaten by NATO Air Force with a terrible record of 10-0. In the end, the entire flight brigade almost fled the air battle scene in a way of holding their heads and running away. This battle left a psychological shadow on the pilots of the Warsaw Pact countries. When they saw the F-86 in the sky again, the Russian pilots shouted in horror, "86, it's 86. 86 is drifting in the air, ready to fire." Then they continued to operate the plane in a terrified manner and fled, leaving only the smell of vodka in the air. This situation did not improve until the Warsaw Pact countries also developed corresponding air-to-air combat bombs. Now Hawkeye issued an order to fire freely, which naturally not only used machine guns, but also asked everyone to prepare to start launching missiles. 20 infrared-guided AIM-9 Sidewinder air-to-air missiles dragged long-tail flames towards the Iron Man armor several kilometers away. For Hawkeye, such an attack, with a bulky mechanical puppet like the Iron Man robot, there was no way to compete, and the only fate was to be beaten into fireworks in the air. He had a smile on his lips, ready to welcome the fireworks that began to be set off in the sky. But his smile had just begun to appear and it had already frozen on his face. Air-to-air missiles of this era are not that fast. The speed of 2.5 Mach is enough to catch up with the fastest fighter in the world, but to deal with Iron Man? You'd better eat dirt. In the warrior-type steel armor, Anthony Stark listened to the Ace Air Combat Fire Youngman and felt his blood boiling. Soaring above the sky, just for a wonderful fight. The eagle spreads its wings and wants to fly. Primer acceleration is turned on. Propulsion pack acceleration is turned on. Adaptive air stabilizer wing is turned on, and the output power is set to 90%. Just when doing all this, Anthony has seen the tail flame of the opponent's aircraft when it launched a missile several kilometers away. After launching the missile, the 10 sabers followed a very beautiful roller action. Only a series of white smoke from the missile launch was left in the original place. Anthony's mouth corners were slightly upturned, and it was time to perform. The steel armor does not even need to activate the air combat close defense system. Only using 90% of the entire power output, the powerful power of the warrior armor is like a prehistoric beast. Dazzling blue-white light gushed out from the nozzle of the air combat backpack. At the moment of adding power, the warrior armor accelerated instantly like a flying dragon in the sky. The sky is my master. I am a warrior hunting in the sky. The acceleration of 3.5 Mach only took a moment to get rid of all the missiles that wanted to attack me. All the tracking missiles were defeated, and even the tail flame of the warrior armor was thrown away without seeing it. The warrior armor, which was originally on the left side of the entire flight team and was in a state of confrontation with the Saber flight team, suddenly accelerated and flew over with the Saber flight team. Fire. Hawkeye couldn't laugh anymore. What the hell is this? Why is it flying so fast? Even missiles can't catch up with the speed of this robot? It's terrible. The members of the Saber flight team have pressed the trigger button of the machine gun to the bottom, and the 20mm caliber machine guns are interweaving a dense fire net in the air. But this can't stop Anthony's advance at all. Too fast, too fast. The speed of Mach 3.5 is an unimaginable speed for aircraft of this era. Except for the Blackbird fighter jet that can only perform reconnaissance missions, no aircraft with combat capabilities can fly so fast. Especially the design of the warrior armor that fully complies with fluid mechanics. How much resistance does the warrior armor have to face in the air? But does the resistance matter? No. Tony Stark's design in the Atrium world made the people of this world understand for the first time what it means to move bricks to the universe as long as the thrust is enough. In just 5 seconds, the entire battle situation has changed. The warrior armor operated by Anthony is a knight flying in the sky, drawing a beautiful arc, breaking through layers of fire nets, and in an instant forcibly breaking through from the attack direction of the flight team to the rear of the flight team. At this moment, he bit the tail of the entire flight team. At this moment, he surrounded all 10 Saber F-86s by himself. Disperse. Patton felt that he was scared out of his wits for the first time. Even in so many battles he had experienced, he had never felt so terrible. Being caught in an air battle means that you are in the attack range and can be shot down at any time. Anthony was not polite to this group of bastards who wanted to ambush his family in the air. Have you ever seen a bayonet fight in the air? A real bayonet fight is to use cold weapons to cut down the opponent's plane. This is what the warrior armor is doing now, although there are many hot weapons to choose from. But Anthony chose the coolest way to fight, which is air combat. From the storage on both sides of the flight backpack, the warrior armor grabbed 2 titanium alloy swords. In the storage mode, the titanium alloy swords that originally looked like 2 oversized TV remote controls split and deformed when they were started, and combined into 2 swords that were 1.65 meters long. This is the design inspiration provided by Li Ji, just like the legendary ship slashing sword. Maybe these 2 swords can't cut down space battleships in the universe, but using the super high flexibility and strong maneuverability of the warrior armor, it is a piece of cake to cut down fighter planes in the atmosphere. The sword flashed, and the 3rd Saber F-86 disintegrated in the air. It was a good idea to scatter and avoid the samurai Iron Man, but it could not be realized. Because the Saber's flying speed was not enough. This fighter plane could not even break the speed of sound. How could it get rid of the samurai Iron Man at a speed of 3.5 Mach? Anthony, wielding a long sword, calmly harvested the lives of the Saber flying team. Groups of fireworks were staged in the sky. Sharp swords and golden red warrior armor, plus angry steel masks. Some pilots could not help but curse, with trembling voices, "This is the Red Devil! This is the Red Devil!" But before he finished speaking, a sharp titanium alloy sword had split his armor in 2. The plane was dismembered in an instant, and various parts scattered from the damaged and split parts, just like a giant dragon whose chest was cut open from the air, and the internal organs scattered along with it. The scattered aviation gasoline was the blood gushing out of the dragon. This flammable blood was instantly ignited when it came into contact with the tail flame of the aircraft that had not yet completely extinguished. Then there was a huge group of fireworks, and the red and yellow flames contained the ammunition that exploded. And the Red Sky Knight rushed out from the thick smoke and flames. Anthony had never thought that he would have such a day. At this moment, he really felt the power. A powerful power that can decide the life and death of others in his hand. This is also a heavy responsibility. Peter Parker, who was standing by the window of the plane, had seen the life and death struggle in the clouds. The trap carefully designed by the group of people behind Natasha could not even break Anthony's defense line. The most advanced modern fighter planes were defeated in front of Anthony, and even had no power to fight back. Anthony even had the opportunity to practice his flying posture. Peter Parker said silently, "The greater the ability, the greater the responsibility. Anthony, I hope you can understand this in the future." Natasha, who was tied up by Peter Parker, looked out the window in surprise. This was not the development in the original plan. 10 fully armed Sabre F-86 fighters and 10 ace pilots suffered heavy losses in the moment of the fight. When did the Iron Man robot, which was once ridiculed as useless by countless people, become so powerful? And Anthony, who she did not see, was actually hiding somewhere in the plane to operate the robot? Natasha felt at this time the organization might have misjudged and kicked the iron plate. Maybe the most terrifying person in the Stark group is not Peter Parker, but Anthony Stark, who everyone thought was harmless, only passionate but naive. Miss Natasha, do you have anything to say now? Your plans should all fail. We will not be soft on you in our subsequent strike plan. May rubbed her shoulders. She had just recovered from the dizziness of the anesthetic gas. She stood beside Natasha and looked down at her with a condescending and mocking look. But Natasha did not beg for mercy, or scold, or any other excited behavior as May expected. She just kept changing her face and finally turned into an ugly expression. Just like a nail gun spewing nails one by one, Natasha said seriously word by word, "Do you think that's all? That person always has two plans for everything." What? May had just asked this question, and before Natasha could even answer, everyone heard the captain excitedly shouting through the communicator in the cabin, 20 kilometers at 9 o'clock, there are still a group of fighter planes hidden above the clouds. 20 in number. They have already aimed at us. The radar shows that we have been locked, and they are going to open fire. Everyone was stunned for a while after hearing the captain's words. Nick Fury is a suspicious person, and firmly believes in being prepared and having a backup plan. Many of his backup plans are only known to him, and before they are revealed, no one even knows that he will prepare a backup plan. Just like now, maybe in Nick's expectation, Peter Parker may think of a way to deal with his first wave of attacks. Even make full precautions. But if they deal with the first wave of attacks, then will they still have the energy to deal with the second wave? Just like now, when the Warrior Iron Man was led away for dozens of kilometers, and the AIM-9 Sidewinder missiles 20 kilometers away had already drawn white smoke in the air and attacked the Stark Group's large plane, what else could this modified civilian airliner use to resist? This kind of plan within a plan, even Peter Parker's spider sense could not predict. Because the spider sense can only tell him that there is a threat, but he has to judge what the specific threat is. It is easy to overlap the relationship judgment between the first danger and the second danger that is very close. At the ground base, Nick Fury was giving orders to his second reserve team with a gloomy face, concentrate fire to kill Peter Parker and his family at once. Anthony must be controlling the Warrior Iron Man on the plane. As long as they are killed, the Red Devil will naturally lose control. Remember, I want to get this robot. Nick's judgment was the same as Natasha's, and he also thought that this new type of steel armor was also the same as the previous one, using remote control. In the sky, dozens of AIM-9 Sidewinder missiles had already attacked. Anthony could no longer care about his own Sabre flying team. He accelerated to the maximum power, trying to rush to the front of the plane and use the air defense array to resist the missiles. The captain of the special plane was also struggling to turn the steering wheel, trying to open a little distance so that Anthony would have time to come back for rescue. But unfortunately, the distance between the two was too far. And the launch distance of the missile was too close. At a distance of more than 20 kilometers, a missile flying at a speed of 2.5 Mach would only take a few tens of seconds to hit the plane. Everyone foresaw the scene of the plane exploding after being hit by the missile. Hawkeye, who had just barely escaped from Anthony's massacre, breathed a sigh of relief, and his back was soaked with sweat. But he was somewhat fortunate that this terrible Red Devil was about to end. Without the operator, no matter how good the robot was, it was just a pile of scrap metal. Maybe he would have a chance to operate this terrible combat machine in the future. Anthony had already accelerated to the maximum speed, but a sense of despair had begun to appear in his heart. If he had not been deliberately showing off, if he had just ended the battle quickly, perhaps all this would not have happened. Uncle Parker, Aunt Mary, and May. Sorry. Anthony's chest was filled with remorse. He had already experienced the taste of separation from his loved ones, and he didn't want to try it again. And now the tragedy was about to be played out in front of him again. In front of everyone's eyes, the missiles were getting closer and closer to the plane. 10 kilometers, 5 kilometers, 1 kilometer, 700 meters, 500 meters, only 100 meters. 100 meters, 100 meters, 100 meters, 100 meters? Wait, what happened? Why didn't these missiles move forward? Obviously, the tail flame was erupting, indicating that the engine was working. But these missiles didn't move forward at all. In fact, because the plane was moving forward, the missiles always maintained a distance of 100 meters. In other words, these missiles were actually moving backwards. What happened? This kind of unconventional thing is puzzling. No one can explain why such a thing that violates the laws of nature would happen. But Peter Parker suddenly thought of something, and he looked in disbelief towards the direction of the back kitchen of the cabin. Because perhaps that person was the only one on the entire plane who had this possibility. And just as he thought, the chef who had recently been hired by his family came out from the back with his lips pursed. He had one hand in his trouser pocket, and the other hand was facing forward with 5 fingers open. He was wearing a pair of gloves that looked like medieval armor. At the same time, he whispered to himself, "Sure enough, at the last moment, I still need to pretend, cough, do you still want me to save the world?" As he spoke, he waved his hand, and dozens of missiles were like being caught in an F5 level tornado, instantly losing the ability to control their direction. They began to run around in the sky, and finally exploded into a ball of fireworks. At this time, his own cook raised his hand at the fleet 20 kilometers away, swayed his palm, and then clenched it hard, as if he had grabbed something. The fleet 20 kilometers away was instantly caught in a manic storm. The crystallization of human technology seemed to lose its effect in an instant, and the terrible strong convection in the sky attacked the fleet from both left and right directions. It was as if there was a pair of huge hands in the dark pushing the airflow to operate in this unreasonable and unnatural way. The group of aircraft in this pair of giant palms were like mosquitoes that flew into between the palms and were about to be slapped to death. Any struggle was in vain. Chapter 610, The Great Cleansing Before Leaving. The invisible giant hand in the sky pushed the powerful airflow to fold towards the group. The steel wings that have been the king of the sky since they were invented, and the war eagles that have no natural enemies except their own kind, have now fallen into helplessness. Just like the fillings in a sandwich. The group of aircraft flying in the V-shaped aviation formation began to deform and tilt from the outermost sides on the left and right. What's going on? What's going on? My plane is out of control. The outermost pilot shouted in horror. No matter how he wanted to turn on the afterburner, or adjust the direction of the stabilizer and wing to escape from his situation, everything was in vain. The plane did not change at all because of his operation, but began to roll over and fly towards the center of the group formation. And this terrifying change was not exclusive to him. The entire V-shaped aviation group began to fold, and the scattered two-wing formation and the core formation flew closer and closer. It was like an open book, and now someone finally wanted to close the page. The person who was closing the book was Li Ji. Relying on one of the magic rings left by Zhang Tong, Vortex, he mastered the airflow and storm in the sky. Snap! Just like the pages of a book being closed heavily, the group of 20 fighter planes were finally forced together by the strong airflow, and finally collided fiercely. Those ace pilots that Nick Fury had recruited with great difficulty over the years were simply slapped to death by Li Ji like slapping mosquitoes before they had time to show their combat capabilities. There was no power to resist. The fireworks that exploded in the sky proved what Li Ji had just done. It was the result of the explosion caused by the collision of the planes and the ammunition that exploded. What happened? Hawkeye couldn't imagine the scene in front of him. The dazzling yellow explosion light was so obvious in the blue sky. Even though they were dozens of kilometers apart, Patton could still clearly see everything that had just happened. And Anthony, who was wearing a warrior armor, was also stunned. He even forgot that he should continue to move forward and kill the remaining few Sabre F-86s. At the ground command center, Nick Fury received the news in disbelief. What? What did you say? A hand in the sky? A spirit? The god of the sky? Nick's heart fell to the bottom when he heard the information coming from the headset. His best pilots died inexplicably, and all the fighter planes were destroyed. At the same time, it also announced the complete abortion of the ambush plan. What happened? Nick was not in the sky, he did not see the scene in the sky with his own eyes, he was eager to know what happened. But now in the sky, people who witnessed everything could not explain what happened in front of them, because everything was too weird. Even in the cabin of the plane, Parker and his wife Lee Ji's actions could not explain it all. Because in front of them, Lee Ji just stretched out a hand, opened his 5 fingers and clenched them hard, but it was such a simple action, but killed all the Iron Eagles dozens of kilometers away. Until now, May Parker and Peter Parker have not recovered. After Lee Ji finished all this, he smiled at the father and daughter, and then he reached out to grab the remaining Saber fighters on Anthony's side. Hawkeye and his few remaining men, who had forgotten to flee the scene because of the shock just now had no way to escape. You may not believe it, but Patton felt that his plane was glued in the sky and could not move. At this time, Lee Ji in the cabin spoke up and said to Peter, Mr. Parker, I really don't want to say goodbye in this way. At least until we meet next time. Peter's inexplicable guess just now has been confirmed by Lee Ji's words. He was full of surprise, and stepped back several steps in succession, pointing his finger at Lee Ji, and said in a trembling voice, You are the Nightwalker. Apart from this mysterious figure, Peter really didn't know what to use to explain what he saw. Apart from the Nightwalker who gave him an incomparably strong feeling, who else in the world could do this? With a wave of his hand, the wind and clouds dispersed, and the mighty power of nature exceeded the power of human technology. Peter knew that Nightwalker was strong, but he never thought that Nightwalker would be so strong. Lee Ji nodded, and he said without any concealment, Yes, you can call me Nightwalker, or you can call me Jason Lee. Or you can call me the snack cart seller. But before we talk about all this, let Anthony capture the remaining pilots. We still need some intelligence. Peter, who was originally a little confused because of the shock, woke up in an instant. He immediately went to the captain's room, picked up the communicator and contacted Anthony and said, Anthony, capture all the remaining Sabre F-86 pilots. Anthony, who was originally a little confused, heard Peter's order and immediately took the 86 pilots who were delayed in the sky out of the cabin one by one, and then threw them back into his large passenger plane one by one, and then May and Peter subdued them all with spider silk. Now there are only 4 pilots left alive, including Hawkeye. Anthony was walking in the cabin of the plane wearing a 2-meter-high armor. If this special plane was modified from Boeing's large wide-body aircraft, it would be inconvenient to walk in the cabin with the size of this armor. Anthony walked to Peter's side and asked, Uncle Parker, what happened just now? Peter didn't say anything, but pointed at Lee Ji who was cleaning up the dishes in the kitchen. What do you mean? Anthony didn't understand. But May on the side said, he is the one who gave you the armor. May said with a little girl's eyes looking at Lee Ji. May's eyes made Anthony particularly unhappy with Lee Ji, but thinking about what May just said, Anthony suddenly understood what she meant. Anthony said in disbelief, Wait, are you saying he's Nightwalker? Anthony looked at Peter Parker, expecting Uncle Parker to deny what he said. But unfortunately, Parker did not deny it. At this time, Lee Ji had already packed up the dishes and walked out of the kitchen. He smiled at Anthony, in various ways. Anthony, you don't need to be too surprised or hostile to me. When we first met, you wanted to save my life. Save your life? Anthony seemed to remember something, and then suddenly shouted, You are the guy who killed the Fiharo gang more than 20 days ago. Lee Ji shrugged, Yes, that's right. You were very brave at the time, holding a rifle and wearing a bulletproof vest, ready to come up to save me, even if there were more than a dozen enemies. You did what many people dared not do. It was from that time that I paid attention to you, not just as Howard's son, but as Anthony Stark, I want to see if you have the right to become Iron Man. Luigi said this. Peter and Anthony exchanged a look, and they both understood the whole story. So, it's not an accident that you come to our house to cook? Did you calculate it? Anthony felt a little toothache. Luigi said bluntly, yes, in various senses, I need to observe you and your family closely. It is not easy to be a member of the League of Legends, even a reserve member. May, who was standing by, did not understand their conversation, but she knew that she needed to be quiet and not disturb the conversation at this time. Because this conversation might be the most important moment in Anthony's life. Your performance is not bad, at least so far. Luigi said with a smile. So I passed the test? Anthony asked. Huh? Not even close. Luigi shook his head. The 10-year test time will not change. You need to make more achievements. This dark world needs heroes. Whether you can become a person who changes the world depends on your performance in the past 10 years. Luigi turned his head and looked at old Parker. Well, please, Mr. Parker, can you interrogate those prisoners? I need some information about their organization and the peripheral gangs involved. Old Parker nodded and turned to the cabin where Natasha and Haka were imprisoned. Anthony asked in confusion, Mr. Nightwalker, what are you going to do? Luigi took out a palm-sized dining car model from his space belt and placed it in an empty space in the cabin. Then he tapped the model lightly, and the dining car instantly became larger, as if magic had been released. In fact, it was indeed magic, the enlargement and reduction spell from Vanaheim, which made it convenient for Luigi to carry this dining car with him. May exclaimed softly, because this dining car was the one she saw Luigi pushing out to sell snacks when she first met him. Luigi smiled at May, then turned to Anthony and answered his question, although it's a bit early, I didn't plan to do it at this time. I was waiting for Christmas to pass. But since the villains in this world are so energetic, I don't mind doing it a little earlier. At the same time, this is also the last gift for you. I will push the food truck to clean up these villains. May listened to what Luigi said and suddenly had a very bad association. She asked with a bitter face, so, Jason, what raw materials are used for the meat on your food truck? Luigi was slightly stunned, then showed a weird smile. Guess. Chapter 611 Show You a Treasure. Since the ambush of the Parker family failed, Nick felt a little uneasy. An inexplicable feeling was brewing in his heart. Because this ambush failed, not only failed, but it could even be said that what he kicked was not an iron plate, but a titanium alloy plate. Not only did his toes begin to hurt, he even felt that his leg bones were about to break. This was really beyond his expectations. Nick, who was conducting remote control inside the Obadiah Manor in New York, felt that he might need to leave here. There was no reason, just an intuition. Although it was not as accurate as spider sense, it had saved his life countless times. It was not only him who conducted remote control inside the Obadiah Manor, but also a group of his most important core subordinates. Many of them helped him contact various peripheral groups. After all, the Skyhammer had to keep secrets, and not just any cat or dog could join. But without the help of any cat or dog, he would be unable to do many things. Just like Abate, this majestic man is nothing but a nobody in Nick's eyes. Nick is not ready to recruit him as a member of Hammer. Because this old dog is not easy to control. But why is Nick willing to help Abate deal with the Parker family? It's not just because of the dancing gems. There is another important reason, that is, Stark Group is the world's largest weapons manufacturer. There are many forces that can be used. And it is impossible for him to recruit Peter Parker, which Nick knows very well. Then he needs a person on the table to control the situation. Abate, the greedy old dog, is a good choice. But Nick did not simply express his intentions. Because the reason is very simple, just like fishing, if you want the fish to be hooked, you must first bait it. After all, compared with the value of the fish, the value of the bait is not worth mentioning. In any case, the fish that falls is more cost-effective. But what if this matter is reversed? What if the bait is more valuable than the fish? Then normal people will have a simple choice. Just like now, Nick thinks that the matter of the dancing gems can be considered in the long run. But now the first thing he needs to do is to get rid of his relationship with Abate. Because old Parker was a cunning old man, he must have guessed that Abate was up to something. Who knows if Peter already knew the whole thing? Or even that this old man had already prepared a counter-ambush to kill himself and Abate together? Everyone listen up. Pack up your things, and evacuate here quickly. Move quickly. Nick gave this order immediately without any hesitation. The other secret members of the Hammer organization had already known the news of the failure in front. Although I don't know why the boss is so anxious to evacuate here, after all, Peter's family is about to reach Los Angeles, thousands of kilometers away from New York. Even if the other party has the ability to counterattack, it won't be so fast. But the boss gave the order, and the people below just need to obey the order. There is no need to ask more about other things, because good hands should not question the boss's orders. The whole organization began to act quickly. Those who should pack up their things should pack up their things, and those who should prepare to retreat should prepare to retreat. And Nick's actions obviously caused reactions from other people in the manor, because there are still some of Abade's men here. They quickly notified Abade. The man, who was as strong as a brown bear, rushed over immediately. He roared at Nick like a wild bear. Nick Fury. What are you doing? Nick looked at him coldly. Just some strategic maneuvers. Strategic maneuvers? Are you kidding me? Abade roared. Although I look like a bear, it doesn't mean that my IQ is that of a bear. How is the ambush on the Parker family going? Abade asked without giving in. Nick frowned, and he secretly made a secret gesture to his men. Then he replied directly to Abade, your intelligence is wrong. Anthony Stark has developed a super powerful robot. A robot knocked down the entire flight squadron. Nick's words also shocked Abade. But after the shock came a strong distrust. You are kidding. 30 Sabre F-86s, that's 86s. And they are equipped with the most advanced AIM-9 Sidewinder missiles on the market. Even if they encounter the same number of MiG-15s equipped with missiles, the odds are 60-40. Does a civilian aircraft have the ability to resist such an attack? Abade began to seriously doubt that Nick was actually planning to run away with the money. He provided him with several $1 million in funds, 30 advanced fighters, and various communication equipment. These are all a lot of money. Even money can't buy them. These weapons and equipment are enough for some small countries in Southeast Asia to sell out some national interests. Abade tried to look at the security captain beside him, and the other party quickly understood the intention in Abade's eyes. Nick was no longer interested in beating around the bush with Obadiah. He pushed Obadiah away and said, believe it or not, I need to make a strategic shift. Stop. Obadiah shouted, and his security team of nearly 100 people surrounded Nick's team of 50 people. Obadiah felt that Nick was trapped because of the huge difference in numbers. At the same time, many of Nick's people were non-combat liaison personnel. Obadiah took a pistol from his security captain, and he pointed the gun at Nick's forehead and said, don't try to run away, wanted criminal. Nick laughed, laughing at Obadiah for being too arrogant. Do you think you can win if you have an advantage in numbers? It's ridiculous. Nick waved his hand, and all his men raised their weapons. One of them pressed a button lightly, and some of the automatic machine guns that had been preset earlier also started to move. This manner had been secretly modified by Nick's men. The mechanisms of 50 automatic machine guns began to operate, and the muzzles had been calibrated to Obadiah's men. You want to come at me tough? Abade. Nick hit back very forcefully. The scene fell into a stalemate, and any accidental discharge of a gun could lead to a full-scale conflict. The scene fell into an eerie silence. And at this moment, in a place where no one was paying attention, a space door suddenly opened. A food cart quietly poked its head out of the space door. Creak, creak, creak. The wheels of the food cart rubbed against the floor, and the sound attracted the attention of others. A hooded man appeared at the scene, pushing a gray food cart. The food cart was inconspicuous, and the man was inconspicuous too. The only thing that was noticeable was the colorful letters on the food cart sign that read, hot soup, hot drinks, Odin. Everyone's eyes were drawn to it. The hooded man stopped pushing the cart and stood there looking at the others. Well, it looks like the atmosphere is very serious. The hooded man touched his chin and looked at everyone, with a somewhat teasing tone. Okay, but since you are all here, I don't need to do anything more. Listen up, 155, 56, 57, cough 158 people at the scene, you have been surrounded by me. The basic policy is that you will not be killed if you surrender your guns. If you sincerely repent, you will have a chance to seek leniency. If there are stubborn elements, pay attention to the iron fist of people's justice. Now I will give you 10 seconds, please tie yourself up. If it is difficult to tie, please ask your companions around you to help. Tie one by one, and I will help tie the last one myself. Now start counting down from 10, 9, 8, 7. The hooded man counted down by himself. But no one at the scene moved, and many people didn't know what this person was doing. Some people looked at the strange hooded man and shouted, "You are SB. Where did you come from?" He pointed the muzzle of the gun at the hooded man, and this move also attracted others to follow suit. More than 100 guns were all pointed at the hooded man. "Really, you are really troublesome. I said I surrounded you. You still want to resist?" The hooded man said with some embarrassment, "Then I can only do it myself." When the hooded man finished this sentence, he gently stretched out his hand, and everyone felt the wind around him, moving. In the courtyard world, in Lee Ji's small villa, Spider Peter Parker had just completed a rescue mission, and an unlucky guy accidentally fell into the sewage sewer. Peter rescued him. But at the same time, he also made himself dirty and smelly, which was a terrible feeling. He felt that he needed to take a shower and originally planned to go back to the night watch base. But because the incident was close to Lee Ji's house, Peter decided to borrow the bathroom at Lee Ji's house. Lee Ji went out these days and was not seen. Peter thought that Lee Ji should not mind using his bathroom to clean up the filth. It happened that Lan was no longer there, and Thor also went to work. Peter happily took a shower in Lee Ji's big bathroom, and took a bath by the way, and washed himself fragrantly. He thought he could use Lee Ji's washing machine to wash his dirty and smelly uniform. When he finished all this, he found a few of his own clothes left here and put them on. When he walked into the living room, he found that Lee Ji, who had not been seen for a few days, was sitting on the sofa and fiddling with a metal box. Peter greeted him, "Hi, I just borrowed your bathroom." Lee Ji said indifferently, "Just use it. I just heard the sound of water and saw the dirty uniform you threw outside. It was too dirty. Did you fall into the pit?" Peter said helplessly, "Almost. I went to the sewage sewer to save a person. Oh, by the way, I threw the uniform into your washing machine to wash it. You don't mind, do you?" Lee Ji frowned. "Did you rinse it before washing?" "What is rinsing?" Peter was puzzled. Lee Ji looked at Peter for a long time, staring at him until Peter felt numb. Then he said, "Do you know where I've been these days?" Peter, who was a little uncomfortable with Lee Ji's gaze, breathed a sigh of relief and quickly asked, "Where did you go?" Lee Ji smiled and said, "I went to get a treasure. By the way, do you want to see it?" Lee Ji raised the box in his hand to attract Peter's attention, and then when Peter was not paying attention, Lee Ji took out his mobile phone and turned on the camera mode. Just when all of Peter's attractions were being noticed, the box opened a gap, and the dazzling purple light filled Peter's eyes. A piece of music sounded in the dark. Appa just killed him. Chapter 612 Backdoor. The next day, Peter Parker, the little spider, walked out of Lee Ji's villa exhausted. After being tossed around for a whole night, Peter Parker now felt that his legs were so weak that he couldn't stand steadily. Spider-Man is Superman, but Superman is also a human being. His physical strength is limited. Under Lee Ji's deep care, Peter deeply realized the importance of washing dirty clothes with water and rinsing the stolen goods before putting them into the washing machine. Peter Parker made a profound self-examination of his wrong behavior. He promised not to make the same mistake again next time. So Mr. Nightcrawler generously said, "A good comrade is one who can correct his mistakes." He let Peter out. As for the various video materials shot for several hours in the mobile phone, there is nothing to mention. Who can't be young? This is to leave a memory of youth. When you are old, you can also release it and see that you were young once. As for other things, Mr. Nightcrawler did not admit that he was embarrassed because he was cheated by old Parker once in the world of Earth number 1 and failed once. At the same time, considering that Black Spider is an old man, he can't stand the tossing at over 50. He had to put the revenge plan on the 18-year-old Parker here. After all, young people can stand the tossing. Of course, the above plan does not exist at all. Mr. Nightwalker swears on his honor that he has never thought of it. Speaking of Earth number 1, Lee Ji did a lot of big things before returning. First of all, according to the intelligence of the captured pilots, he directly located Abade's manor. He used the ability of the dining cart to break the space door, and then arrested all Nick and Abade's gang who were in confrontation. At the same time, he learned about many other peripheral organizations from the population of this group of captured people. Unexpectedly, Nick, still formed a super-large transnational criminal organization. The organization called SYNOPSIS is an anti-human organization no matter how you look at it. So the days on Earth number 1 suddenly became very mysterious. There may be a mysterious person who suddenly appears with a dining card and then captures gangs, warlords and other villains everywhere in the world. From North America to South America, from Europe to Asia, even the villains hiding in the North and South Poles could not escape this unprecedented purge. The interrogation of the prisoners was handed over to Old Parker, who was particularly experienced in these matters. As a result, Old Parker was too busy to sleep for several days. Through the confessions obtained from the interrogation of the prisoners, Mr. Nightcrawler's attack range became wider and wider. It was not until the big fish were almost caught and only some insignificant shrimps were left that Lee G stopped. He left the remaining small fish and shrimps to the new Iron Man Anthony to practice. Since then, the high-end villain forces of the entire Earth number 1 have been almost wiped out by Lee G. The biggest of them is Skyhammer. Nick wants to launch an anti-human, human cleansing perfection plan. To put it bluntly, it is to borrow the magical power of the dance gem to launch an armed revolution. And he also asked Abate to prepare a batch of equipment. Lee G guessed that this batch of equipment was prepared for this matter. However, before he could realize his plan, it was immediately destroyed by Lee G. However, Lee G also wrote down the name of the equipment he needed. Dance. The ability of the gem looks like a joke, but ordinary people cannot escape the illusion of this gem. If there is no help from others, you can really dance to death. After solving the problem on Earth number 1, Lee G talked to Anthony and Old Parker again in the costume of Nightwalker. I think this world will be more peaceful in the future. Lee G meant that he arrested a lot of people and put them in jail, and killed those who were hated by both humans and gods. His actions caused an unspeakable vacuum state among the villains and underground forces in the world. Anthony curled his lips when he heard Lee G's words, maybe, but now all countries in the world will have a headache. Suddenly there are so many more people in prison. Lee G shrugged, I can't kill them all, that's not good, there are thousands or tens of thousands of people. Lee G doesn't have so much leisure time to sort out all the villains on Earth number 1 and convict them. What their fate will be depends on the choices made by the natives of Earth number 1 and Anthony. Well, that's it. I'm about to leave. But I'll come back in about 10 or 12 years to see if you've really become Iron Man. If you use the equipment provided by the organization to do evil, I'll kill you myself. Nightcrawler said the last sentence to Anthony, and his tone was very serious, not joking. Anthony also cheered up and responded, don't worry. I, Anthony Edward Stark, will become Iron Man. Huh? Lee G touched his chin. Why did this line sound so familiar? Anthony responded to Lee G confidently, while holding his chin high. With that energetic expression, Lee G seemed to hear the background music surrounding Anthony. Impossible. Lee G shook his head. How can he become a man with his own BGM? That is the halo that only the protagonist has. A man with his own BGM will definitely win when the BGM sounds, no matter who the opponent is. Lee G felt that he must have heard it in an auditory hallucination. He just added a little BGM to the warrior armor. It was impossible for Anthony to understand the trick or supernatural power of having his own BGM. The Nightwalker pushed the food cart and left Earth number 1 3 days after Christmas. Lee G left Earth number 1 after spending a Christmas. I will miss his cooking. May pursed her lips as she looked at the direction where Lee G disappeared, and said reluctantly, actually, you should lose weight, although it is winter. But I found that you gained 5 pounds in the month when Jason was here. Anthony stood beside May and said unceremoniously. In response to Anthony's behavior of exposing herself and disliking her weight gain, May simply and rudely replied, get lost. When leaving Earth number 1, Lee G kept a watchful eye. He did not directly seal the gap with the energy of the Guardian Pendant. Because he discovered another little secret hidden in the pendant, that is, the Guardian Pendant can leave a door on the gap in the dimension for the user of the pendant. The gap was sealed with a door, and a key was also left. The key is the pendant, and with the key, the door can be opened again at any time. Then, did my predecessors also leave doors in other dimensions? For example, for the same reason as mine, or for other more complicated reasons? For example, hiding some of their own secrets in a place where only they can go. The more Lee G thought about it, the more possible it was. Maybe the profession of guardian is really not as simple as Master Ancient One said. Lee G suddenly became very curious. Did his predecessor leave doors for him? If so, how many did he leave? At the same time, what secrets are hidden behind those doors? Venus, Illuminati Base. Lounge. Tony Stark saw Lee, who had not been seen for a few days, and greeted him. "Where have you been? And you were in such a hurry to get the armor last time. You haven't told me what you did with the armor." Lee shrugged. "I made a deal with a gem holder in exchange for a magical gem." As he spoke, Lee took out a gem box on his chest and put it on the table in the lounge. "What kind of gem can be worth an iron armor?" Tony Stark was full of doubt. "It is very valuable, but there is a little danger. Although it is not serious, I suggest opening it under protection." When Lee was chatting with Tony Stark, a strong voice suddenly came from behind. "Gem? I am good at identifying this. At least 1/10 of the gem treasure house in Asgard was found by me to present to Odin." A strong arm picked up the gem box. "The owner of this hand was the god of thunder, Thor. Can you identify gems?" The voice was Captain Rogers. "It seems Thor has some special skills. Not only can he fight." The two voices belonged to the professor and Hank. "Hey. I'm a master of gem identification," Thor said unconvincedly. "Let me see what's so special about this gem." While speaking, Thor opened the seal of the gem box. No. Before Lee could even stop him, he had already seen the purple light emerging from the box. It first shone on Thor's face. The smile on the fat Thor's face gradually disappeared, and turned into a demented Alaskan look. And then, the purple light began to illuminate the entire room, covering the Illuminati. Chapter 613, An Unprecedented Serious Meeting. Venus Base, Illuminati Meeting Room. Quiet, unprecedented quiet. This kind of quiet and weird atmosphere has never appeared in this place. Even when discussing the New York battle to lure Zhang Tong and eradicating the Ten Rings gang. Or when considering the establishment of a mutant nation and dealing with subsequent issues, this room has never been so quiet. In most cases, the Illuminati's meeting and discussion is like this. As follows. On a sunny afternoon, in the rest area of the Illuminati base, charcoal barbecue is prepared, and some fruits are picked from the plantation. Then go to the swimming pool for a swim, and after exercise, everyone drinks red wine, eats barbecue and fruits. Then in laughter, let a group of villains go GG. The above is the normal style of the Illuminati. Now in the Illuminati meeting room, the 6 giants of the Illuminati are sitting at the round conference table with gloomy faces. Everyone crosses their fingers and then folds their hands into trapezoidal shape. The dim light shines down from the spotlights above. Because the light comes from directly above everyone, everyone lowered their heads slightly, making it difficult to see everyone's facial expressions clearly. All you can see is the light reflected from the top of your head and forehead. Of course, there is also the light occasionally refracted by Dr. Hank's glasses. The atmosphere was so dull that even the air seemed a little oppressive. No one spoke, and it seemed that no one wanted to break the silence. The current scene was just like the meeting between Seal and Nerve and Eva, discussing the Human Instrumentality Project. If it was accompanied by the music of Apostle Attack, it would be perfect. Lee's mind was full of all kinds of strange images. Until Captain Rogers spoke. Captain Rogers was like a committee member of Nerve in a meeting. He spoke in a way that you never see their mouths moving. "So, is the picture cleared?" The one who answered Captain Rogers was Tony Stark, who was sitting diagonally opposite him. He also answered in a way that you couldn't see his mouth moving. "The picture is cleared, confirmed." Dr. Hank's glasses reflected the light, making his eyes invisible. He hid his eyes behind the lenses. "The footage taken from the camera has been confirmed and all deleted." Charles' bald head reflected the light from the lamp and became extremely dazzling. He said in a low voice, "Everyone, I think you should all know the seriousness of this matter. Once this footage gets out, it will have a fatal blow to the prestige of our organization. Especially at this juncture. We can't get into trouble." The person who spoke was the hooded Nightwalker. Now is the critical moment for Captain Rogers to strive to become the leader of the new organization, SWORD. We cannot afford any mistakes. The organization has already put a lot of effort into this step. Nothing negative can be circulated, so as not to affect Captain Rogers' image. This is the most important thing at this time. Mr. Nightwalker, a standing member of the Illuminati Standing Committee, repeatedly emphasized the criticality and importance of the current moment. Mr. Iron Man, whose face was hidden in the shadows, nodded. "I understand. I will not only delete the data, but also physically destroy it." The data disks recorded here will be destroyed into atomic state at 30,000 degrees in a moment, to ensure that there is no possibility of recovery. Please check with me, Dr. Hank. Iron Man Tony Stark turned his eyes to Hank. Dr. Hank pushed his black-framed glasses, and the light reflected by the lenses was dazzling for a moment. Hank nodded. I understand, since the organization needs it. While the 5 giants of the Illuminati were discussing how to end the incident just now, the 6th giant of the Illuminati said nothing. The God of Thunder lowered his face and his expression could not be seen clearly. He rested his chin on his hand, ensuring the same posture as everyone else. When the discussion of the 5 giants came to an end, the scene fell silent again. In this quiet atmosphere, a long breathing sound seemed so eye-catching. Hoo-ha hoo-ha, this rhythmic breathing sound, if I heard it correctly, could it be the legendary snoring when sleeping? Everyone focused their attention on the source of the sound. The 6th giant of the Illuminati, the strongest thunder god from Asgard, Alaska, Thor, was breathing evenly. His expression looked quite serious, but what was the shiny liquid hanging from the corner of his mouth? Could it be the legendary drooling while sleeping? Seeing this Alaska sleeping so soundly in such a serious occasion, everyone was furious. If it weren't for this Alaska's dirty hands and opening the gym box, would everyone have fallen to this point? Exclamation mark. Think about what everyone just did together, cough. Nothing happened just now, nothing happened. It didn't happen before, and it won't happen in the future. Thor. Mr. Iron Man was sitting next to Thor, and he slapped the table hard. The violent vibration caused Thor's chin to break away from his palm, and then he shook and finally woke up. Thor wiped the saliva from his mouth and said in a trance, "Is the meeting over? Is it time for dinner?" Stare. 5 people, 10 eyes stared at him fiercely. Commissioner Nightwalker spoke, falling asleep during a meeting? Unorganized and undisciplined. Who allowed you to do this? Commissioner Nightwalker's words were agreed by the other 4 commissioners, who all stared at Thor Scar with fierce eyes. Thor Scar immediately waved his hands. Wait. I usually don't fall asleep that easily, especially when things are serious. It's just that I was too tired from dancing just now, you know. My weight is here. I just did thousands of Thomas turns and handstands in one breath. It's normal for me to feel a little sleepy now. Thor Scar argued vigorously. Actually, you guys are sleepy too. Just now the professor danced disco in a wheelchair, Dr. Hank transformed into a beast and danced the waltz alone, Tony you danced the samba, Rogers danced the cha-cha. Jason danced Michael Jackson's robot dance. Actually, everyone is sleepy, right? What's the point of having a meeting? Let's cook dinner together, eat and go home to sleep. Thor said to himself, and looked around with a flattering smile on his face. He was as harmless as a Shiba Inu who wanted to eat cucumbers. Note, but why did Thor feel that the atmosphere around him suddenly became solemn as soon as he finished speaking? What did he say wrong? Mr. Thor, I think you made a mistake. Opposite Thor, Commissioner Nightwalker was speaking seriously. Although the distance was very close, Thor inexplicably felt that the other party was very far away from him. We have been in a meeting just now, and nothing happened, right? Nightwalker said with a smile. He had a smile on his face, but why did Thor feel so scared? And why did Tony, Rogers, Charles and Hank all put on such a scary smile? Wait, what did I do wrong? Exclamation mark. Thor felt that he was shrinking, and the 5 people opposite him were growing. This strong sense of oppression was like facing 5 Odins, which made him lose the heart to resist. In the United Nations building, a special meeting was being held. It was a meeting held by the 5 permanent members of the United Nations, the G20 countries, and other regional hegemonic countries on the Earth. There was only one theme of the meeting, that is, the Earth needed to build a rapid reaction force. And the 5 permanent members of the United Nations had already thought of the name of this rapid reaction force, which was Sword Bureau. Note, the Shiba Inu who eats cucumbers is from the East. He is a Shiba Inu who helps his owner to look after the store and loves to eat cucumbers. In the end, he ate too much cucumber and became too fat and had 3 highs, and then he was forced to give up his hobby of eating cucumbers. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 614 Prototype. New York City, United Nations General Assembly. Today, the United Nations building is unusually lively. As an international organization established after World War II, the United Nations has mostly played the role of a puppet. Most of its uses are to smooth things over or to be a mouthpiece for powerful countries. Politically, the United Nations is not very useful, just like the Hague Court. If it is useful at all, it is concentrated on some public welfare projects such as aiding poor countries. But today, all the powerful representatives of all countries participating in the new round of the United Nations General Assembly gathered together with serious expressions. Because the Battle of New York is just the beginning. The alien fleet that appeared after that, the so-called Thor and the 9 worlds he mentioned are the issues that leaders of all countries are concerned about. The huge prototype conference hall of the United Nations was full of people, and almost no country missed this meeting. This is not some other insignificant meeting. It doesn't matter whether you come or not. This is an important conference about the future of mankind. After the Secretary General of the United Nations finished his speech to the conference, the first American representative to the United Nations, who was arranged to speak on stage, strode onto the podium. Everyone. We are facing a threat. The American ambassador was an older white man who looked like a Spartan warrior when he was serious. He said in a high-pitched voice, "This is a complete threat. We have come into contact with extraterrestrial life for the first time." The American ambassador pressed the button in his hand, and the big screen behind him suddenly turned on. The scene played on the screen was a conversation between Captain Rogers and Thor, which was widely reprinted by media around the world. Captain Rogers' contact with aliens may be the first time that humans have faced extraterrestrial civilizations, and they are advanced extraterrestrial civilizations. We should be thankful that this man named Thor looks friendly. The American representative said self-deprecatingly. Otherwise, maybe we can't have a meeting in this building today. As for the words of the American representative, everyone knew clearly what he meant. Because whether it was the Mandarin's 10 rings helping dragons, or the subsequent Star Fleet, the overwhelming force they showed made it difficult for people to raise the idea of resistance. But there are always troublemakers in this world, such as the Greek representative, a middle-aged man with an obvious Mediterranean appearance, who raised his hand to interrupt the American representative's speech. The American representative frowned, but still nodded at him. Any questions? To be honest, everyone present, including me, has never seen the so-called aliens and alien fleets on the spot. Everything was broadcast on TV. And the distance of the camera was very far, and the US military stopped those reporters from moving forward. The Greek representative said slowly. In fact, the last clear images we saw were all filmed and broadcast by the US military's military reporters. In fact, you didn't let other freelance reporters cross your cordon, right? The US representative twitched his lips. That's for their safety. The Greek representative continued, so, we can't be sure of what we saw, right? Maybe those are the things you want to show us, and you show us. You don't show us the things we don't want to see. So is there something you didn't show us? For example, are there more details in the conversation between Captain Rogers and Thor, or are those so-called aliens simply made up by you? The Greek representative questioned the US representative at the General Assembly like a shit-stirrer. The US representative stared at the Greek with an expression as if he had eaten something bad. He really wanted to smash the Greek representative's head open to see if his head was filled with shit. But despite such an impulse, the US representative suppressed his anger and said, there were hundreds of nuclear explosions outside New York City at that time. Far beyond the nuclear force of our time. When we regard nuclear force as a deterrent force, the other side has already regarded nuclear weapons as conventional force. The US representative stared at the Greek representative and said, I don't think there's any country in the world that has mastered this technology. The US representative said, what if the interstellar fleet flying outside New York City at that time was a trick created by the military? If the United States has this level of technology, why would I have to watch you talk nonsense in front of you? But the Greek representative continued his performance of stirring up trouble. I read the meeting summary. American gentlemen. The topic of this UN General Assembly is to form a new global organization, and the first step is to form a new rapid response force. The American representative nodded, yes. The Greek continued, so this is a more rigorous organization than the European Union? A global one. The American representative, yes. Then what about the European Union? What about the money Greece invested in the European Union? And those complicated financial inputs and outputs? How should these be settled? The Greek representative was still discussing the authenticity of aliens, but then he immediately made a 180-degree turn and brought the topic to the European Union. At this time, the American representative realized what the Greeks were thinking. Damn this bunch of poor people who only eat and don't work every day. Now the national credit is completely bankrupt. If it weren't for the European Union to help cover the bottom, this country would have been finished long ago. Many countries in the European Union have long been dissatisfied with Greece. Greece is very afraid that this new international organization will kick Greece out of the European Union or simply dissolve the European Union. If the European Union dissolves, where will we Greeks go to make a living? And Greece and Germany have a complicated historical debt problem. How will the new organization calculate it? The Greek representative said with a shameless face, "Are we just going to leave it like that?" The German representative who had been listening could not help it. Even though the participants of such a high-level meeting as the General Assembly were all high-ranking officials with status and cultivation, the German representative still wanted to hit the Greek representative. Because the so-called historical debt problem of the Greek representative was the problem of Germany's World War II reparations. In fact, Germany had already paid this amount many years ago. But because of Greece's credit bankruptcy and government financial crisis, so the Greek government proposed that Germany should compensate Greece for the losses caused during World War II again. The reason is that the calculation of the compensation at that time did not take into account factors such as price increases and inflation. Now the second compensation will be paid according to today's prices and inflation. So, I think we still have a lot of problems to solve. About whether aliens exist. Do we need to form a new organization and establish a quick reaction force or something? The Greek representative said these words very simply. The meaning is very clear: I have no money, the country is bankrupt, give me money and I will agree. The on-site meeting materials of the General Assembly were also delivered to the hands of some national leaders. Because at the same time as the UN General Assembly was being held, a G20 summit was being held via video link. The British Prime Minister saw the minutes of the meeting handed over by his subordinates and said disdainfully, "Greece, the troublemaker of Europe." The German Chancellor and the French President on the other side of the video chatted, but considering the status of the British Prime Minister and the current projects of the three countries, they did not speak in the end. At the same time, a confidential file transmitted through an encrypted file was delivered to the desks of various leaders. The two documents, Temporary Implementation Outline and Memorandum of Understanding of the Joint Speaking Department of the Earth Regime to Extraterrestrials and Suggestions on the Establishment of the SWOR, have been opened by leaders of various countries. Chapter 615, The Earth Federation Government is established. The UN meeting is actually useless. Although it is called a meeting, it is actually more like a routine notice. Whether the participating countries like it or not, a new international organization is taking shape. Because the leaders of the G20, the world's most important countries, who are really in charge, are holding a secret video conference. Including Wakanda, which has not participated in international affairs for a long time, and Latvia, which has not been well received by the United Nations before, are all in this meeting. The main content of the topic is that for the extraterrestrial life that will appear in the future, humans need an official and unified voice channel. All diplomatic affairs with extraterrestrial life will be communicated by the new organization. No country or individual may contact extraterrestrial life in any form. No country or individual may give the interests of all mankind to any alien civilization. Once any organization, country, or individual is discovered, they will be sentenced to crimes against humanity and sentenced to death. And there is no mercy. This is a matter about the interests of all mankind and cannot be taken lightly. And because of the invasion of extraterrestrial civilization, the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council reached a consensus with Latvia on the cooperation project of developing the moon, and expressed that they could join Latvia and the new Eastern European Union behind it. This should be good news for Ligi. Because in fact, the origin of everything comes from the Eastern European War. Because of the Eastern European War and the new energy issue, the human political system was invisibly divided into 2 factions. Although Latvia's combat effectiveness was too strong, it led to temporary peace, but this peace had a false feeling. Because when Helium-3 arrived, a more intense war would still break out. But now because of the threat of extraterrestrial civilization, the human government temporarily gave up its prejudice. At least there will be no large-scale conflict. When two fighting fish are fighting to the death, if a third fighting fish is added, the two fighting fish will temporarily stop. If the new fighting fish is bigger, the two previous fish may even join forces. Just like the situation the Earth is facing now. Compared with fighting to the death with themselves, now a bigger problem is in front of these Earth leaders. Unlike those brainless people on TV, there are no fools and real leaders. They can distinguish between the important and the urgent, and know that some things are more important than internal fighting. Although there will be internal fighting in the future, at least it will not be fiercely exposed, but will become a private struggle. It is better to compromise through negotiation and exchange of interests than to go to war. If the leaders of the group of 20 fail to reach an agreement, they will send their intentions and instructions to the representatives at the General Assembly. Then the topic will naturally shift, and then the General Assembly will vote. Because there are 20 major countries, including global powers and regional powers, to set an example. The voting process is just like a game. Maybe the representatives of a country were arguing with other countries over something at the General Assembly before. But once the vote came, they voted in favor because of the instructions of the leaders. At the same time, because of the influence of these major countries, those small countries that were originally dependent on the surrounding of the major countries voted in favor for various purposes. The voting process is broadcast live around the world. So some viewers sitting in front of computers or TVs can't understand this voting process at all. When did the voting in the General Assembly become so efficient, and almost all countries voted in favor at the same time? Exclamation mark. Those topics were passed one by one, just like the will of the people. The meeting of the UN General Assembly became a formality, but not many people knew the inside story of this matter. At the G20 summit, those agreements that could not be reached were temporarily shelved, and those topics would not appear at the UN General Assembly at all. The UN General Assembly became a machine for simply voting in favor. Many people in small countries did not understand what was going on, but their countries voted in favor. Everything went smoothly. The only most troublesome thing was the appointment of the leader of the Sky Sword Bureau to form an extraterrestrial life. Because through preliminary communication, the leaders reached a relatively unified meaning. That is, in the future, the Sky Sword Bureau will become the Earth Federal Government, temporary, external communication bridge. Who should be chosen as the leader of this group of people similar to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Rapid Response Force and the first line of defense of the Earth? Which country should be chosen? These are all problems. Argument, negotiation, real quarrel, and negotiation. They fell into a dead cycle. After talking for many days, the leaders of the 20 countries were very tired. On the last day of the scheduled meeting, the US president looked a little haggard and said to the leaders of other countries on the other end of the video, "Gentlemen, we can't keep arguing endlessly. It's not good for us. The candidate for the director of SWRD should be decided today. Without a leadership framework, the concept of SWRD we established before is all illusory." The British Prime Minister immediately said, "So I propose that Ms. Elizabeth become the director of SWRD. She has many years of work experience in MI6 and will be a very good leader." The Russian president laughed sarcastically, "Prime Minister, we can't let the British take all the advantages." The British Prime Minister also responded to the Russian president's sarcasm without hesitation, "Then who do you propose? Prov, the head of the KGB? Don't think we don't know that when you were the leader of the KGB, Prov was your number one confidant. SWRD belongs to all mankind, not just you. Do you want to turn SWRD into a second KGB?" The British Prime Minister was telling the truth. The Russians could only snort and did not answer. This is the most embarrassing thing about this meeting. The 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council are actually the ones who have the ability to propose the list of candidates for the leader of the SWRD. But the leaders of the 5 countries do not buy into each other's nominees. The US president's initial nominee was his own Secretary of Defense, but the US allies all unanimously opposed this candidate. Not to mention the other 4 permanent members of the UN Security Council, even the other leaders of the G20 did not agree with this proposal. So at the end of the first day of the meeting, this nomination had been thrown into the trash by the president. Everyone does not want to see the United States become powerful. Even Russia, which has temporarily formed an alliance, does not want to. So when everyone is staring at the top position of the SWRD, they set their sights on the competition for the second in command, which is more likely to happen? In this quarrel, the US president thought of the conversation with Tony Stark that day, and his analysis of the current situation was still very accurate. Maybe I should really nominate Captain Rogers. The president thought to himself, but Captain Rogers is not a person who listens to the government very much. Although he is called Captain America, he is not the captain of the US government. Rogers is loyal to the United States and to mankind, but not necessarily to the US government. This is actually the biggest concern of the president. Captain Rogers has made the government look bad, as he sued the US military for infringement and the US government for inaction. In particular, the positive publicity for Captain Rogers in recent years has been almost entirely led by the government, which makes the government feel like it has slapped itself in the face. But at this point, it seems that there is no better choice. So the US president coughed to attract the attention of others, and then said solemnly, I am nominating a person, Captain Steve Rogers, to be the first leader of SWORD to manage human external affairs. Captain Rogers was the first to come into contact with extraterrestrial life, and he handled the first conversation with extraterrestrial life very appropriately. Moreover, although Captain Rogers is an American, more importantly, he is an upright person. The US president felt a little bit of a toothache when he said this, but he continued, I think we all know what the other party is worried about. If there is really no way to choose someone who can balance the interests of all parties, let's just speak frankly. Just like the ancient Roman Republic chose its leader, regardless of background or interests. Only those who are honest, fair and capable are chosen, so I propose Captain Rogers. So, what do you think? After the US president said this, the leaders of the other 19 countries in the video conference fell into deep thought. Latvia expressed its position. Doom voted in favor with a mood of watching a good show. Then Wakanda also voted in favor. This is the candidate who has received the most votes in these days. Many leaders thought about it, and after seeing the three countries do this, they voted in favor one after another. So a very strange thing happened. The leaders who had been arguing for several days for the position of the leader of the SWORD reached a consensus at this time. They agreed with a unanimous vote that Captain Rogers would become the director of the SWORD. UN General Assembly Press Hall. Global media gathered because the Secretary General of the United Nations was going to announce an important thing today. This was the follow-up effect of the Battle of New York, and it was also because humans began to face the transformation of the cosmic era that was about to enter. From the meetings and various votes of the General Assembly in the past few days, many journalists who were sensitive to political news had guessed what it was. But when the Secretary General of the United Nations, the somewhat thin Asian man, stood on the podium of the General Assembly, he announced in a tone that was still obviously excited even after being suppressed. It still set off the whole audience. Countless spotlights illuminated the reporters who swarmed in, and there were all kinds of unbelievable gasps and low exclamations. This made the General Assembly chaotic for a moment, like a vegetable market. As for what the Secretary General of the United Nations just said, in fact, he only said one sentence. After voting, 95% of the members of the General Assembly unanimously agreed. The Earth Federal Government, provisional, will be established today. This federal government is not the same as the other federal government. Everyone should be able to see that this is a government that handles foreign affairs. In simple terms, it is a government that speaks with one voice to the outside world. But this is only the first step. Chapter 616, Memoirs of Nightcrawler and the Whereabouts of the Winter Soldier. Today is an extraordinary day. Here I announce to the people of the United States of America. With the unremitting efforts of various governments, the U.S. government and the vast majority of government departments in the world have reached a preliminary agreement. The temporary Earth Federation regime has been officially established. The TV broadcast the U.S. President's speech on the temporary Earth Federation regime. A new world organization that was born out of the United Nations General Assembly. A new structure organized to deal with aliens, passed by the most powerful and important countries in the world. At present, the main use of this structure is that when extraterrestrial life comes again, the Earth has a unified response. This is like speaking in unison to the outside world, but the countries on Earth still do their own things. Although the boundaries of the world still exist, it has made the whole world closer. And the possible arrival of the cosmic age, and the fact that humans are not the only intelligent creatures in the universe, this kind of thing makes more people understand that unity is more important than internal strife. So when the Earth Federation, temporary, was established and announced that it would set up the SWORD to manage foreign affairs, and Steve Rogers would become the first director of the SWORD. Most countries in the world maintained a favorable attitude. So, with Captain Rogers as the leader, funded by the 5 permanent members of the UN, and SHIELD as the main bodies. At the same time, Stark Group provides technical support. A brand new organizational framework is being built, and this is just the first step in the beginning of the new world. Now everyone, whether politically sensitive or not, now understands that the world is starting to spin at high speed. And most people in this world don't know that the person who started the high-speed rotation of this world was an inconspicuous little character. A little person who started just to open a restaurant on the earth safely in the future, so that friends and family can live a more secure life and enjoy some happiness in life, began to pry the first piece of the world's rotation. Then the chain reaction that continued to occur was like a snowball getting bigger and bigger, and until today, what was just a bold idea at the beginning has now taken shape. It's like the wheel of history being pushed. Now everyone who knew this bold idea at the time must sigh, the torrent of history is vast and mighty, and those who follow it will prosper and those who go against it will perish. Times create heroes, but conversely, heroes can also create times. I hide in the darkness, not because I like it, but because someone must be able to protect the light in the darkness, just like I work in the darkness, but my heart longs for the light. In the darkness, I just watch the sun rise normally at every dawn. The orange-red light shines on the earth and nourishes life. I don't know if my choice is right or wrong, good or bad. But someone has to make a choice in this world, right? Since others are afraid to stand up and face the challenge, or they keep compromising and wavering for various interests, well, then let me stand up. Li Ji was sitting in his study room writing furiously. The above content was written by himself. It was recorded in a thick 16-page notebook, written by hand with a fountain pen. On the cover of the notebook, there was a beautiful name written in cursive, Memoirs of the Superhero Nightwalker. The impassioned speech of the U.S. president that made people pee, cough, tear-jerking came from the living room. In the study, Li Ji kept writing with the energy of the speech. He was writing the memoir chapter 1, The Hero's Choice. He had to think and polish while writing, so Li Ji's writing speed was not very fast. Are you writing a suicide note? The voice that suddenly appeared in the study scared Li Ji. Huh? Li Ji patted his chest. Lan, can you walk without making any noise next time? This is home, you don't need to enter stealth mode. Huh? But aren't you a mage? Why is your stealth better than Wolverine Logan's? Li Ji said as if he suddenly thought of something. Lan grabbed a handful of his long black hair and scratched his chin with the end of his hair. Logan? Are you talking about the guy who said as long as all the enemies are killed, stealth will be successful because no one can find me? As for my ability to stealth, it's because it is one of the required courses for mages. If basic skills such as fighting, swordsmanship and stealth are not up to standard, then the upper limit of a mage's ability is limited. Lan scratched his chin and face with his hair and said seriously. Li Ji felt a little toothache. Does it also include learning the ancient languages of various prisoners and various foreign languages? Lan nodded. Yes, that's right. These are the basic foundations of mages. How strong a mage can be does not simply depend on the upper limit of talent, but more on how solid the lower limit is. Li Ji continued to have a toothache. Mages are a group of people who are proficient in berserker battles, fighting, stealth assassination, and have to be geniuses in their brains. They are really a group of guys who make others depressed. Lan didn't notice Li Ji's expression, but focused on Li Ji's notebook. So, you are writing a memoir. Lan has a special reading habit. She would feel uncomfortable if she didn't have a book to read, but at the same time, her reading speed is very, very fast. So she only glanced at it from a distance and remembered what Li Ji wrote. She looked at Li Ji with some disdain. Are you really writing a memoir again? Isn't it a bit too, Lan thought for a long time, hoping to come up with a more neutral word to describe it, but the word was really hard to find, so she could only say in the end, isn't it too conceited? Li Ji curled his lips and shrugged. Who cares? I have done so much work and no one knows about it. Think about it, isn't this very sad? Although for various reasons, I may not be able to tell these things before I die. But I decided to start writing a memoir now to record my story. Then I will bury it and wait for future generations to dig it out 1,000 years later. Then they will know the truth about how great a superhero the Nightwalker who is active in this era is. Li Ji adjusted the non-existent bow tie and said pretentiously. Lan looked at Li Ji with a suspicious expression. So you adopted the way of Long Ocean in the online article to describe yourself? I saw several paragraphs of descriptions like, XXX never found out that the Nightwalker was so terrifying. If you want to write a memoir, shouldn't you sign up for a composition tutoring class first? Lam said sincerely. Li Ji blushed. Really? Have you written several paragraphs of this routine? Well, I mean I will revise it. Lan had an expression of, oh, okay, and then she said with a smile on her face, aren't you afraid that your memoirs will be like Einstein's time and space box and will be found by someone in a few years? Li Ji was looking for the paragraph, XXX never found out that the Nightwalker was so terrifying, on his notebook and was preparing to revise it. Without even looking up, he answered, I will not bury this thing until the day I am about to die. I am looking forward to the expressions of humans 1,000 years from now when they find this record. Maybe my memoirs will become the most important documentary material in human history, and will be passed down through the ages. It will become a classic for studying this era. Lam shook his head. Then people 1,000 years from now will find that on Earth 1,000 years ago, superheroes led by Nightcrawler could already rely on their physical strength to shatter the galaxy with one punch. Then they will sadly discover that after 1,000 years of evolution, humans have regressed the more they evolve. Li Ji answered while revising his memoirs, isn't this good? Only by making them question their own evolution and technology can we ensure that the world continues to move forward. Greed is the first driving force for the advancement of the mortal world. Lan could only sigh and say, well then, the terrible Mr. Nightcrawler, could you please put down the important work in your hands for the time being and do something unimportant? What? As for the person you are looking for, the Winter Soldier Bucky Barnes, we already have a clue about him. Upon hearing this, Li Ji immediately put down his notebook and stood up. Take me over. I want to subdue him first. Lan looked into Li Ji's eyes for 10 seconds, then said, you told me about the triangular feud between the Winter Soldier, Captain America and Iron Man. It's as complicated as the bloody drama broadcast on Chinese TV at 8 o'clock in the evening during the prime time. You still have a lot of things to do, so many plans, and various ideals. To make the world a better place, you can't do without the help of Captain America and Iron Man. The intervention of the Winter Soldier will be complicated. Lam said with some concern. Actually, if you wish, I can make Bucky never show up. Li Ji was stunned for a moment when he heard what Lan said, then he smiled and reached out to stroke Lan's long hair. Lan did not dodge, the truth will come out sooner or later. Even if I don't tell you about the Winter Soldier, Captain Rogers will know it in the future. He is now the leader of SWORD, and he will have greater power in the future. A lot of information will pass through his hands. At that time, it will be more complicated to invite guests. Now is actually the simplest situation. Lan sighed deeply, but what if a conflict really happens? Can you control these two people? You can't really hurt them. This will be very difficult. Do you need my help? Li Ji grinned. I wasn't very sure before. But Thor helped me do an experiment before, and I found that the magical gem is still useful. Although in order not to attract attention to hatred, I pretended to dance an ugly dance to cover it up. If there really is a conflict between Captain Rogers and Iron Man Tony, and it even escalates to the point of swordplay, I will have a very peaceful way for them to end their fight and sit down and have a good talk. Lan was a little confused by what Li Ji said, so she asked, so what is it? Li Ji smiled and hummed a little tune rhythmically. It's better to dance than to fight in a group. Chapter 617, Sentinel Project restarted. Atlantic Ocean, the mysterious place of Bermuda Triangle, where the secret base of Hydra is located. Red Skull Schmidt has been very unhappy recently, very unhappy. In fact, since he was resurrected, he has rarely been happy. Although the war more than 70 years ago ended with the failure of Hydra, he did not feel that he had failed at that time. Because in fact, since the end of 1943, he had made the worst plan, including the failure of, and how to deal with the problem of Hydra after the failure. From that time on, Hydra's plan of full retreat and infiltration into enemy organizations, or breaking up into different organizations and companies has been implemented. Although the failure of World War II caused an incalculable loss to Hydra, it did not destroy Hydra. The Hydra have 9 heads, dead but not stiff. After breaking up, It actually brought the entire organization back to life. Although the new Hydra is not as aggressive and extreme as the old Hydra, it is more flexible and secretive. Schmidt, who was resurrected 70 years later, is ambitious. He wants to complete the plans and goals that he failed to complete at the beginning. Just like the first step he did, he deliberately released a group of new Hydra codders and members who were not loyal to him when S.H.I.E.L.D. started the internal phishing plan. With the help of S.H.I.E.L.D., he killed a group of forces that were not convenient for him to control, and at the same time brought a lot of trouble to S.H.I.E.L.D. When S.H.I.E.L.D. fell and Nick Fury was arrested, Schmidt did not pursue the victory. The reason is simple. Although the Red Skull is the most important spiritual leader and soul of Hydra, but 70 years have passed. Can you know what other people in the organization think after 70 years? Especially those Hydra forces that Schmidt dispersed 70 years ago, he needs to control them one by one and sort out these forces. The key is that he needs to take power again. Only after Kyankin is arbitrary can Schmidt do what he wants to do. Otherwise, in a huge organization like Hydra, it would be very unpleasant if someone hinders it. Because the plate is too big, the people below may destroy his entire plan. Therefore, when S.H.I.E.L.D. fell and Nick was arrested, S.H.I.E.L.D. became more vulnerable during the power vacuum period of S.H.I.E.L.D. But Schmidt did not do it, because he also needed time to do something of his own. So the two super large organizations between the good and the bad seemed to have a tacit understanding, forming a short-term balance. Then Agent Hill became the acting director of S.H.I.E.L.D., and then S.H.I.E.L.D. fell into a financial crisis, and Captain Rogers and the government military went to court. The power of public opinion made the masters on Capitol Hill surrender. During this period, Schmidt was constantly shrinking his power, and the middle-level codders of Hydra were replaced layer by layer. The big purge and the big change of blood were also going on inside Hydra, and it was very bloody and cruel. When Schmidt finally took control of Hydra again after 70 years, and recovered the organizations that had been dispersed, such as AIM Technology Investment Company, the power of Hydra began to expand further. To resist foreign aggression, you must first stabilize the internal affairs. Now Schmidt has finished stabilizing the internal affairs, but the resistance to foreign aggression has not yet begun. Just when he was about to show his strength, the sudden attack stunned the entire Hydra organization. This attack did not come from government intelligence agencies such as S.H.I.E.L.D. or S.H.I.E.L.D. If it was these old rivals, Schmidt would not be confused. What was really confusing was that the direction of the attack came from another terrorist organization in this world. The organization called the Brotherhood of Mutants. To be honest, Schmidt was a little confused as to why the Brotherhood of Mutants attacked Hydra. Because after Hydra went underground, it did not have any grudges with terrorist organizations? Exclamation mark. It can even be said that the Hydra organization ended 70 years ago in the eyes of most people. It was exposed to people's vision again because of the fall of S.H.I.E.L.D. And this news was not widely spread. Except for a small number of senior officials of the U.S. government, this information was kept secret. If at the beginning, the Hydra executives including Schmidt thought that the attack of the Brotherhood of Mutants was just the frenzy of the terrorist organization, then when the attacks came one after another, they were completely aimed at Hydra. Schmidt's red skull face looked very scary under the reflection of the light, making his men dare not breathe. The only sound in the entire conference room was the stomping of Schmidt's feet as he paced back and forth. Can anyone tell me what's going on? Schmidt's tone was calm, but everyone could hear the anger beneath his calm tone, from Malaysia, to New Guinea, to Chile, Peru and Mozambique. Our companies, our bases, and our routes are constantly being destroyed. And almost every time the enemy finds the location accurately and attacks the weak points. In just a few months, Hydra has suffered losses almost equivalent to the war between 1941 and 1942. Schmidt's skull eyes exuded a terrifying light. Can anyone tell me why the Brotherhood of Mutants would do this? The scene was silent. Only one hand was quietly raised. Schmidt glanced over. It was Dr. Rice, the chief scientist of the Genetic Science Department of AIM, a company under Hydra. Dr. Rice's father was Dr. Trasco, who used to be Schmidt's right-hand man and a confidant in Hydra. As Trasco's son, Dr. Rice was also reused after Schmidt came to power. He raised his hand to indicate that he needed to speak, and Schmidt pointed at him to signal him to speak. Dr. Rice coughed lightly, then spoke, because the leader of the Brotherhood of Mutants is named Eric Lansher. But this is just his pseudonym. In fact, if you trace it back, I recently found relevant records from the records left by my father. This leader of mutants has another name, Max Eisenhardt. He is a mutant and also a Jew. In 1940, his whole family was arrested in Germany and sent to a concentration camp in the same year. Dr. Rice tried to use neutral words to describe this passage. He didn't need to say it very clearly, because just like this, Schmidt already understood it. The Jews sent to the concentration camp in 1940 were still mutants. Schmidt's eyes twitched. This was the trouble left behind. Hydra's plan to use the mutant's X gene to create super soldiers did not succeed in the end. One of the test subjects might be the man called Magneto. So now things can be sorted out. So, he wants to carry out a revenge for nothing. Schmidt looked at Dr. Rice and asked. Rice didn't dare to meet Schmidt's eyes. He immediately lowered his head. In fact, it's not just that, there are more complicated situations. In the 1960s, S.H.I.E.L.D. once formed the first generation of X-Men. My father was in it at that time. But due to various reasons, my father's identity was finally exposed, and Magneto came to him for revenge. At that time, our organization captured his wife, as well as his newly born son and daughter. Dr. Rice's words aroused the interest of the Red Skull. So, you mean to say that his son and daughter are actually still in our hands? And this kind old father is going to save his children? Dr. Rice immediately replied, yes, respected leader. In fact, our organization has never stopped researching mutants. And many of the research obtained over the years are attributed to the two mutants we captured. That is Magneto's son Quicksilver and daughter Scarlet Witch, who were captured that year. And recently, Lord Schmidt, I have just recruited a very useful talent who can help you solve all the mutant troubles in one go. Dr. Rice was finally going to tell his true intentions. Schmidt said with interest, tell me about it. Former U.S. Major General Stryker, he was originally in charge of the entire X-weapon program. The earliest X-weapon program was initiated by my father. The X-weapon program is not simply to create powerful mutant weapons, Your Excellency. Dr. Rice lowered his head. According to the purpose of Hydra, mutants and Jews are heretics of the whole world. We should eliminate them. So my father designed the original and most important plan, Sentinel. Your Excellency, I think it's time to restart, Sentinel, in the situation we are facing now. Chapter 618 Nulan Bator. In fact, Magneto and Hydra have a grudge against Trasko and Schmidt. But as Trasko's son, Let also has a grudge against Magneto. Magneto lost his parents, wife and children because of Hydra, and his hatred is irreconcilable. His hatred for the world and society comes from Hydra pushing him step by step into the abyss of revenge, which constantly distorts his mind. Dr. Let's hatred for mutants is almost the same. He was educated by his father Trasko since he was a child, about mutants or cancer cells in the human world. Education is the enemy of a healthy society. Let was brainwashed and hypnotized by his father's education since he was a child, and it was Magneto's pursuit of his father that completely solidified his thoughts and even pushed them to the peak. When Magneto learned that his wife and children had been killed, he burst into unprecedented anger. That time, the agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. failed to stop his anger. He broke into the military base. Relying on his superb magnetic control, he played with modern weapons like children's toys. And Trasko was also torn to pieces in Magneto's revenge. And this incident directly gave rise to Magneto's rebellion and escape from S.H.I.E.L.D. And in the 1960s and 1970s, the relationship between S.H.I.E.L.D. and the military was completely broken, and it grew from a department under the military to an independent department. And because of this incident, Nick Fury slowly stepped to the front, step by step from a soldier to the leader of the world's most important intelligence agency. Note, putting S.H.I.E.L.D. aside, just looking at the hatred between Magneto and Dr. Rice has reached a state of no end. In public, Hydra is the organization he is loyal to. In private, Magneto is his father's murderer. From any angle, Dr. Rice must do his best to help Hydra eliminate the mutant brothers and eliminate Magneto. And it is not an easy task to eliminate Magneto and his mutants. You must know that most countries, led by the United States, define the mutant brothers as terrorist organizations. Magneto Marx's wanted order is the highest level in the world, and the bounty is also the highest among all terrorist leaders. Over the years, the bounties offered by countries around the world for Magneto have exceeded $3 billion. It is an astonishing astronomical figure, but no one dares to take this task. Magneto is not alone. He has a group of terrifying mutant warriors under his command, all over the world. Even if Hydra and the Brotherhood of Mutants go to war, The Red Skull dare not say that he will win. So when Dr. Rice explained in detail the origin and nature of the Sentinel Project, Schmidt gave an order: go ahead. The organization will support your research as much as possible, Dr. Rice. We will help you get everything you want. Let the Sentinel robots move, and tear apart those unclean mutants. These cancerous cells on the Earth. Schmidt's words gave Dr. Rice the greatest support. If there is no full support from Hydra, it will be difficult to complete this matter independently relying on AIM alone, because AIM is at least a legal company on the surface, and there are many things it cannot do. But Hydra can do it, such as taking out some key information from a warehouse in Geneva. Those data about the Sentinels that General Stryker had sealed up personally. Schmidt did not refuse Dr. Rice's small request. He told Crossbones Bullock, one of his trusted subordinates, "Leave it to you, Bullock." Crossbones, wearing a skull mask, nodded and walked out of the conference room. He walked through the tightly guarded tunnels and came to the combat readiness room he was in charge of. There would always be 3 to 6 of his subordinates on duty here, waiting for Bullock to issue orders at any time. Bullock had quit S.H.I.E.L.D. and became the most important sharp knife in the hands of Hydra Schmidt after he released a group of criminals from the S.H.I.E.L.D. prison last time and caught S.H.I.E.L.D. off guard, even almost causing big trouble for New York. Notify the team members to prepare. I need a group of pioneers. Try not to let our people get involved too much, Bullock told his subordinates. Also, help me contact Taskmaster, Cougar and Hunter Craven. Let these mercenaries be the main force. Brock ran his thumb and middle finger across his forehead as if he suddenly remembered something and said to his signalman, also, get the people in Ulaanbaatar moving. Haven't they always wanted to join the core layer of Hydra? Then let the Winter Soldier, whom they praised so much, move. Then do we need to tell them what to do? The signalman asked. Let them know that we're going to the bank in Geneva to get some gold out. Brock smiled. In the conference room, the meeting was still going on, because Schmidt suddenly became very interested and said to Rice, so, are the children of Magneto that your father captured still there? Dr. Rice immediately replied, yes, they are still in our hands. We have never stopped researching mutants. Many of the abilities of the Sentinel robots imitate and borrow the power of these 2 people. Schmidt crossed his fingers and asked, so, where are they? In fact, I have already transported them here before this meeting. Dr. Rice said, if the Sentinel project is launched, it is safer to carry it out at the Hydra headquarters. This is a way for Dr. Rice to express his loyalty to Schmidt, ensuring that his plan to study the Sentinel is carried out under Schmidt's nose, so that Schmidt can calmly control this power. Rice does not think that he is more capable of playing tricks and political games than Schmidt. Since you have chosen to be a younger brother, you must act like a younger brother. Schmidt was very satisfied with Rice's performance. He waved his hand and said, then let's go and see what Magneto's children look like. Maybe we can give this kind old father a big gift. Schmidt's skull face showed a terrifying smile. He was not going to wait until the Sentinel robot was formed to attack the Brotherhood of Mutants. Passive defense, or even taking a beating, was not Schmidt's character. The confrontation with the Brotherhood of Mutants must be carried out. Maybe he could give Magneto a big gift? Ulaanbaatar, the capital of Mongolia, a country sandwiched between China and Russia. In this not very prosperous city, Lan opened the space door and walked out from a remote place with Li Ji. So, is Bucky the Winter Soldier in this city? Li Ji looked at the streets and the few tall buildings in Ulaanbaatar and said, then let's first catch this guy who will cause big trouble. Note, a lot of the grievances and hatreds between S.H.I.E.L.D., the military, Hydra, and Magneto have been written in the previous part of this book. So friends who have forgotten can go back and read it. In addition, Taskmaster, Cougar, and Hunter Craven are all second-rate villains in the Marvel world, but their fighting power is still good. Chapter 619, Sweet to the point of falling out. Mongolia is a special country. The reason for the birth of this country is very complicated, but in the final analysis, the 2 major countries do not want to have a long and frightening border between them. Whether Mongolia belongs to either China or Russia, it is not a good thing for both countries. As a country that has been influenced by the culture of the former Soviet Union and Russia for a long time, although the people of Mongolia still speak Mongolian, its official language is not Mongolian, but Cyrillic, which is almost the same as Russian. Li Ji and Lan walked in the streets of Ulaanbaatar in disguise. This is a magical place. A huge statue of Genghis Khan can be seen in the city center, but the text annotation below is in Russian. Under the influence of Russia, the former Soviet Union, for a long time, many things sold on the street here have a strong Soviet style, especially candies and snacks. On the way to Bucky Barnes's hiding place, Li Ji bought a small piece of the popular Rainbow Milfeu cake from a passing vendor, ready to share it with Lan while walking. "Is it necessary?" Lan asked, looking at the palm-sized cake and 2 spoons in Li Ji's hand. "Oh, isn't it because we don't want to attract attention? Aren't the Winter Soldiers group hiding in a residential building? We need to observe the terrain first and confirm whether the target is there, so as not to scare those people away. So be natural." Li Ji raised the Rainbow Milfeu cake in his hand. "So, a man and a woman walking on the street still need to be a little disguised, don't be too abrupt." Lan looked at the rainbow cake in Li Ji's hand, then looked at the sincere smile on Li Ji's face, and tapped her chin with her index finger and said, "Okay." She took the spoon from Li Ji's hand. The two walked side by side towards the residential area where Bucky and his group were hiding, and at the same time shared a piece of Rainbow Milfeu cake like a couple. Lan gently scooped a piece of Rainbow Milfeu cake with a spoon and put it in her mouth. In an instant, her face changed several times. With tightly closed lips and downturned mouth corners, her expression looked like she was about to cry. Li Ji was a little confused. "What's wrong, Lan?" Lan took a deep breath and calmed down her excitement. Then she put on a smile on her face and said to Li Ji, "Nothing, it's just that this cake is so delicious, and I'm a little excited." Lan said with a sincere face. Her big almond eyes smiled into a pair of crescents, and her upturned mouth corners looked so touching. Li Ji instantly felt that his heartbeat quickened by 2 beats, but he still looked at the rainbow 1,000-layer cake in his hand with a little doubt and said, "Is it so delicious? This is just bought from an ordinary pastry shop? I don't see what's special about that shop." Lam said with a raised corner of his mouth, "Maybe they are hidden in the city? Maybe it's a shop opened by a generation of cake kings. I think you need to take a big bite to feel the wonderful taste of this kind of cake." Lam said seriously. Li Ji was a little confused. Seeing Lan smiling so happily, is he kidding me? But think about it, it's just eating a big bite of cake, what's so scary about it? So Li Ji didn't think much about it, and scooped a big mouthful of Rainbow Milfeu cake with a spoon and put it into his mouth. "Friend, have you heard of sweet hell?" When that big spoonful of Rainbow Milfeu cake entered the mouth, the taste buds at the front of the tongue that could sense the sweetness at the first time instantly transmitted the feeling of this sweet hell to Li Ji's brain. Starting from the tip of the tongue, it spread all the way to fill the entire mouth. The strong sweetness took away all other taste experiences the moment it entered the mouth, because the sweetness was too strong and even affected the experience of the taste of the food. Li Ji couldn't taste the cake in his mouth anymore, because there was only one taste in his mouth: sweet, sweet, sweet. "It's killing me. Did this cake maker go out today to rob a sugar factory? It turns out that buying sugar here is free?" Lan was about to cry because of the sweetness after just taking a small bite, and Li Ji now felt really sweet to the point of heartache after taking a big bite. Lan smiled at Li Ji. "The cake shop you chose is really good. Is it delicious?" Li Ji now knows that Lan did it on purpose. She must feel that he is playing tricks on her, and she wants revenge. Li Ji replied with tears in his eyes, "It is actually very delicious. I think you didn't taste it carefully just now. You should scoop a big spoonful like me to try it." As he spoke, Li Ji had already scooped a big spoonful of the terrifyingly sweet Rainbow Milfeu cake and handed it to Lan's mouth. "Come on, try it." Lan scooped a bigger spoonful of cake and replied, "Since you like it so much, you should eat more." Both of them smiled very sweetly, so sweet that they almost burst into sugar water. To outsiders, this is just a street couple spreading dog food. But only the two people facing each other understand that this dog food is so sweet that it is poisonous. In a residential area in Ulaanbaatar, a group of Russians are hiding in it. It is not surprising to see Russians in Mongolia, because this country has been a vassal of Russia, Soviet Union, for a long time. From politics to economy, it has been a long time since the country could control itself. It is normal for Slavs to travel to Mongolia frequently, and even many Russians have settled here. This residential area is a settlement of a group of Russians, and it is the largest gathering place for Russians in Ulaanbaatar. It is not surprising to see more than a dozen new Russians here. Torganov, what is the information just received? In a 2-bedroom and 1 living room residence, a sturdy Russian like a polar bear is asking his companion, a thin Russian who is only about 1.7 meters tall. The thin Torganov, who had just returned from the outside meeting with the intelligence personnel, patted the dust on himself and said, "Pool, this is the order sent back by Block. They are willing to accept us, but they have to complete a task first." The strong man named Pool asked, "What task?" "Block is going to organize a group of people to rob the Geneva vault. He needs help." This is the information Torganov got. He didn't know that this was just a lie from Crossbones. Crossbones Bullock would not be so foolish as to express his true intentions. He even arranged a group of mercenaries to do the work in order to attract the firepower and attention of others. But Pool and Torgano did not know. The strong Pool has the body of a polar bear and looks a bit like a polar bear, just as fierce, and he looks just as scary when he grins. It's a good opportunity to join the inner core of Hydra. We must seize it. But Torganov still asked a little worriedly, "If we are on the periphery, we can still find a way to get out in the future, but once we join..." Torganov's eyes flickered. "I heard that the Red Skull can be resurrected. As long as we enter the internal department, we will never be able to get out again. I've had enough of this kind of shit alive. Ever since I was wanted by the KGB, I can't make it anymore." Originally, there was still some room for movement in Eastern Europe. But the damn Doom established the new Eastern European Union, and Doom's armored guards began to check all kinds of people in Eastern Europe. "We can't live like this anymore." The sturdy Pool complained very unhappily. "We fled from Russia to Eastern Europe, and then from Eastern Europe to Mongolia. We are mercenaries. We are not thieves being chased by dogs." The days of wandering made the group of mercenaries headed by Pool very unhappy. Although there were frequent fights in the past, there were always generous commissions to be taken. After fighting through the mountains of corpses and seas of blood, they could always enjoy a life of luxury. But in the past year, these people have lived like wild dogs being chased by people. From the current living conditions in the community that are not very good, it can be seen that the days of these mercenaries are not easy. Pool's men are all special forces of the former Soviet Union. After the disintegration of the Soviet Union, the whole country fell into a state of frenzy. Prices soared and food was in short supply. The supplies in the army were stolen and sold in large quantities, and the soldiers were starving. At this time, Pool took his men and a group of Special Forces members to leave. This group of guys who dared to kill and fight were Pool's original team. In the chaotic era, force was also a kind of capital that could be sold. Especially in the chaotic Eastern Europe. Over the years, some of Pool's men have survived, some have died, and many have joined. But the mercenary business has always been good. Because compared to those outsiders, Pool has another big killer in his hands. That was a plan that should have been sealed after the collapse of the Soviet Union. As the first successful test product in that plan, the Winter Soldier should also be sealed. So that the country can serve the country again after it has corrected the chaos one day. But Pool found this artificial super soldier on the eve of the collapse of the Soviet Union, in the chaotic era of the army. Through bribery and intimidation, some people involved in the plan sold out the details. Especially the details about how to control the Winter Soldier, which is a kind of brainwashing and hypnosis from the depths of the soul, a complex control system formed by drug control and stress response. Pool has done a lot of things for Hydra, but at that time they were all peripheral work. And now, when he feels that he can no longer mix on the periphery, he seeks to enter the interior of Hydra. His Winter Soldier will play a role and be able to control the Winter Soldier. As long as the operation in Geneva this time achieves enough credit, his position within Hydra will definitely improve. Pool secretly clenched his fists. He had already made plans and plans. While he was making preparations, the sentry who had been monitoring the community sent a message. There is a suspicious man and woman, dressed as a couple. They are feeding each other cakes, but neither of them eats them. They have been around the community twice. Do we need to pay attention to them? The words from the sentry caught Pool's attention. It's not that they really found anything, but at this critical moment, Pool didn't want to cause trouble. After all, his group of people are still wanted by the KGB. It would be a pity if a large group of KGB suddenly came in and controlled his group at this time. He was ready to surrender to Hydra. Thinking it's better to be cautious, Pool ordered, "Let 2 people follow the tail." Then he glanced at Torganov, who was frowning, and said, "Don't frown so deeply. Even if the KGB comes now, we are still capable of fighting. Besides, it might be a false alarm." Torganov was still a little cautious. "I hope I'm overthinking, but the timing is too coincidental." Pool patted Torganov with his big hand. Don't worry, even if something really happens. We still have the Winter Soldier. He's invincible. I'll go wake up the Winter Soldier now and be on alert. Don't worry too much. Chapter 620 Mission accomplished. Trouble has just begun. In another locked room in the two-bedroom, one living room apartment. A man with shoulder-length black hair, a resolute face but a somewhat distracted look sat on the bed in the room. His beard was not well-groomed, neither was it left out to form a beautiful beard nor was it shaved cleanly. There were many thin roots of beard sticking to his chin, and some stubble had grown out, which looked very dirty. He was very strong, but not too bloated. Rather, he was a good soldier, strong but also flexible, not as strong as a bodybuilder. What was striking was his left arm, which was not a normal human arm, but a mechanical arm made of special alloy material. The five-pointed red star symbolizing redism was unusually dazzling on the silver-white arm. If Captain Rogers stood here, he would recognize who this man was at a glance. This was Barn Buckus, a good brother of Steve Rogers who had been friends for more than 10 years. It was also the prototype test subject that was found by the Soviet Union and transformed into the Winter Soldier. It is also the most successful one in the Winter Soldier project. It is also Pool's biggest reliance. The physiological indicators of the Winter Soldier are very close to the standards of Captain America. Even if there are some shortcomings, the Winter Soldier has made up for it with a modified mechanical arm, and it is even more powerful. The Winter Soldier's mechanical arm can give him 5 tons of strength, and his left arm is invulnerable to swords and guns. It also has the function of close discharge. Bucky can discharge in a circular area with a diameter of 30 meters with himself as the center. The current can be strong enough to directly electrocute ordinary people to death, or it can just stun people. Because of this mechanical arm, the Winter Soldier Bucky has a rich fighting style. Pool walked into Bucky's room and frowned at Bucky, who was in dementia. This is not a good sign. It is not easy to control Bucky, because his will is very firm. If it were not for the control of drugs, he could not be controlled at all. But on the other hand, the Winter Soldier project requires the experimental subject to endure inhuman torture. If there is no firm willpower, it can't be resisted at all. In the past year, Pool and his men have been running around, and Pool has consumed a lot of drugs to control Bucky. If he can't stabilize and Torganov can't find a suitable place to prepare the medicine, then it will be troublesome in the future. Pool took out a yellow serum from his suitcase and injected it directly into Bucky's neck vein. Bucky seemed to want to struggle during the injection, but another voice in his head told him to give up the struggle. 2 different voices circled in his mind, giving him a splitting headache. And Pool completed the injection at this time. After being injected with the serum, Bucky calmed down again. Pool controlled Bucky's head with both hands and made him look into his eyes. Pool recited in a calm tone, Zeleny I, desire, Wrzhavchina, Rust, Simnadset, 17, Rasviat, Dawn, Pyach, Furnace, Diaviat, 9, Dobrota, Kindness, Damoy, Go Home, Auden, 1, Yuzevik, Truck, Sold Soldier. Bucky's eyes gradually became less distracted, but like a wild beast, with the cold-blooded ferocity filling his eyes. Pool patted Bucky's shoulder with satisfaction. Soldier, start the alert mission. Any enemy that is dangerous to this house, eliminate it. Bucky didn't say anything, but his eyes revealed fierceness. He nodded calmly, and then pulled out a large box from under the bed in the room. The box was opened, and it was full of various weapons. Bucky silently pulled out a modified M16. There is an extra tail behind us. Li Ji and Lan walked side by side. He said this with a smile as if he was whispering to his girlfriend. Lan also smiled. It seems that they have seen it. She smiled gently like a girl responding to her boyfriend. Because you don't eat the rainbow milfeu cake I handed you, you attracted their attention. Li Ji used his eyes to indicate the cake he had been holding for a long time. Then why don't you eat what I feed you? Open your mouth. Lan also responded with a cake. Li Ji thought for a while, and finally said, do we really need to hurt each other like this? Who said this cake was delicious, and tricked me into taking the first bite? I feel like I ate a year's worth of sugar. Lan continued to smile and responded, well, didn't I take a big bite too? That must be at least 10 years of sugar. Li Ji shrugged, we have gone around this community twice now, and we have found everything we should have found. It's almost time to close the net. There are a total of 6 secret sentries, and there should be another 12 companions on the floor where the target is located. Their vitality is much stronger than that of ordinary people. There is also a tail following us. Lan used special soul detection magic to tell Li all the detected information. Li nodded. Then the secret sentries are left to you, and I will go to attack the main target directly. Speaking of which, if it weren't for finding Bucky Barnes, the source of the trouble, we wouldn't have to come here and eat such a disgusting cake. I'm going to stuff this thing into his mouth later. Li has already decided who will own the remaining half of the rainbow cake. Lan tilted her head and laughed. You really hold a grudge? Same here. Li scratched Lan's nose, then took a large piece of cake on her fork and said, let's do it now. Lan nodded. Well, be careful. As soon as the voice fell, Lan disappeared from the spot in an instant. The Maozi mercenary who had been hanging Li and Lan from a distance was startled. A couple who were originally walking together suddenly disappeared in an instant. This was no different from seeing a ghost in broad daylight. And just when he was stunned, the man who was still in his sight also disappeared. Are you looking for me? Li's hand was already on the hand of this strong mercenary. As Li's strength became stronger and stronger, his speed became faster and faster. Apart from flying with a sword, he could also fly with the wind by using the vortex in the 10 Commandments. On land, because of the 9 strikes of purple thunder, the steps used to match this set of swordsmanship were also learned by Li. This step does not have any special skills, nor does it focus on dodging and moving. The only feature is speed. Straightforward and as fast as lightning. So in the time when the mercenary was distracted, Li had instantly arrived behind the mercenary. While putting one hand on his shoulder to talk to him, the other hand directly pinched the spine of the mercenary's neck. What? Before the mercenary even had time to fight back, Li had already gently broken the mercenary's spine with a little force. Easy and simple, as easy as crushing an egg. These mercenaries are very strong, but no matter how strong they are just ordinary people. They don't even have the fighting power of a US captain. Li is just playing with them. The mercenary sentry who has been observing Li was about to sound the alarm for Pool, when suddenly an unprecedented cold feeling attacked his nerves. The cold penetrated from every pore and passed through the nerves and blood vessels. Without any struggle, in less than a second, the mercenary sentry had frozen into an ice block. For these mercenaries, Li and Lan didn't care about their lives. Which of these people's hands were not stained with blood? Especially in the chaotic areas of Eastern Europe, how many terrorist attacks were committed by them? How many innocent people died at their hands? So they ended the lives of these people directly, and neither of them had any psychological burden. When Lan just dealt with a sentry here, Li was ready to launch a strong attack on Bucky. Bucky and his team were on the 10th floor of a house in the northeast corner of the community. This was the tallest house in the community. Pool, who was in the house, had already discovered the abnormality of Li and Lan. He cursed, "Damn it. It's the wild dogs of the KGB. They are coming, everyone is ready to fight." The mercenaries in the building had already turned out the weapons hidden in various places, and the bullets were pushed into the gun chamber one by one. Everyone had their hands on the important positions in the corridor. But they made a mistake. That is, did Li need to climb the stairs to attack them? Li bent his legs slightly, and then suddenly exerted force. At a distance of 100 meters, purple current surged from his body, and then spread to his legs, and then the whole person flew towards their stronghold like a cannonball out of the gun. When it was about to hit the wall of the house, the right palm pushed, and the mighty power of the sun emerged. After being controlled by Li, the white palm print directly punched a hole more than 2 meters in the red brick concrete wall. The bricks and stones shattered by the power of the palm print set off a whole rain of gravel in the room. These gravel rains were like fragments of a bomb explosion. Ping ping bang bang, the room was hit by various noises of gravel rain. At the same time, these gravel harvested lives in the room with super high kinetic energy damage. Several mercenaries who were ready to stand by in the room were directly hit by the gravel, and the unlucky guys were even hit with blood holes all over their bodies. Pool and Torganov, who were still thinking about how to retreat, had not even had time to think carefully before they were harvested by the gravel rain and died. Li flew into the house like a javelin thrown, following the gravel rain. The huge noise made by Li also attracted the attention of other mercenaries who were on guard outside. No one rushed into the room stupidly, but used rifle grenades and stun grenades to attack Li in the room. This kind of attack method would have been very troublesome for Li Ji a year ago. Especially these mercenaries are skilled in offense and defense, with very layered defense and offense, and strong vitality suppression. But a year later, Li Ji did not feel nervous at all when facing these attacks. With just a flash, Li Ji had already rushed out of the attack range of these mercenaries. For Li Ji, dealing with these mercenaries is not much more difficult than dealing with the thugs of the Fiharo gang on Earth number 1. There is no need to use any weapons, just kill in front of the opponent at a ghostly speed, and then gently tap the opponent's Adam's apple with a hand knife, and then the opponent will be killed directly. This attack method is very efficient, even more effective than shooting. Those mercenaries were not defeated in one move. But when Li Ji's hand knife was about to harvest the life of the last mercenary, a silver-white mechanical arm blocked Li Ji's palm. Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, is Li Ji's target this time. He had noticed this guy a long time ago, but Li Ji had not taken action against him. Because Li Ji did not want to kill him, but to take him away. Li Ji was going to get rid of all the mercenaries who were in the way before dealing with Bucky. Now Bucky used his mechanical arm to block Li Ji. The Winter Soldier was a product of the former Soviet Union's Super Soldier program and a crystallized product of Soviet technology. Bucky Barnes grabbed Li Ji's hand. As a cold warrior, the Winter Soldier had no emotions. Killing was the Winter Soldier's duty, and he would not be sad because of the death of his companions. Because Poole's last order was to get rid of guys who were dangerous to the unit, such as Li Ji. The moment he grabbed Li Ji, the Winter Soldier's mechanical arm instantly launched a super strong electric current attack, and the current that was enough to electrocute ordinary people into charcoal gushed out. Dazzling blue arcs jumped and flashed on the Winter Soldier's mechanical arm. But the current that had been invincible in the past and was very useful against any enemy was defeated this time. Bucky grabbed Li Ji's hand, but the current on his mechanical arm could not be transmitted to the other party, and could only be circulated back and forth inside the arm. The Winter Soldier, who had been expressionless, showed a trace of surprise on his face. Li Ji, who was dressed up in Kaiazirong, smiled and said, "Playing with electricity in front of me? Except for Thor and Odin, I am not afraid of other people who play with electricity." As Li Ji spoke, the surging purple thunder power surged from his hand. In just a moment of contact, the blue arc that was originally jumping on Bucky's arm turned into a more eye-catching purple. And the power of this thunder of destruction was obviously not something Bucky could control. In just a moment, Bucky felt that all 36,000 pores in his body seemed to be electrocuted by the current. The strong current instantly filled his whole body, and even his heart stopped for 3 seconds before recovering. This was because Li Ji had reserved his strength, otherwise he could carbonize Bucky with the thunder of destruction with just one contact, and even if he used all his strength, Li Ji could decompose Bucky into an atomic state with the thunder of destruction. But this was enough. Bucky fainted instantly under the stimulation of the strong electric current. The mercenary who was stopped by Bucky and not killed by Li Ji had already run a long distance. Li Ji took advantage of the purple lightning power in his hand and threw out a lightning javelin. It accurately hit the mercenary who was escaping in the corridor. Now his goal was achieved, and the Winter Soldier Bucky Barnes was successfully captured. But Li Ji knew that the trouble was just beginning. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 621, Locking Up a Beast. The so-called trouble of Li Ji is not to worry about how to control Bucky the Winter Soldier in the future, or how to deal with the Hydra behind him. Because with the power that Li Ji and the Illuminati behind him have now, they can completely use force to flatten Hydra if they want. Of course, if they really do this, it may cause global panic, because if the Starfleet launches another global Hydra sweeping attack, the general public does not know whether it is Hydra or the three-headed dog that is being attacked, they only know that the Earth has been attacked. The Battle of New York has already frightened many people, and even for a certain period of time, the people of the world have fallen into the situation of frantically purchasing daily necessities in supermarkets in the past. In a short period of time, especially when the people of the Earth are not fully prepared, Li Ji does not intend to do this again. The real trouble for Bucky is how to deal with him. Kill him? This method is a bit stupid. Because I can find Bucky, then Captain Rogers will probably be able to find Bucky Barnes from clues in the future. In the final battle to destroy Hydra, Bucky fell into the frozen zone of the Arctic Circle in order to help Captain Rogers, and was frozen for decades like Captain Rogers. Later, because of the Soviet scientific expedition, or the Hydra branch lurking in the Soviet Union to conduct data investigation, Bucky was discovered, and he began to train the Winter Soldier plan. Although these actions are confidential, it does not mean that there are no traces. Especially after the disintegration of the Soviet Union, a lot of information was lost and scattered, and Captain Rogers might get relevant information. You know, he is now the director of SWORD. Although the framework of SWORD has just begun to be built, it will eventually become stronger in the future. If it becomes a large organization that is no less than the size of SHIELD, then Captain Rogers will be able to mobilize much more resources than now. At that time, if he follows the clues to find out about Bucky, and even knows or guesses that Lee G killed Bucky, then what will the relationship within the entire Illuminati be like? In terms of force, Rogers is definitely not Lee G's opponent. But Rogers has never been a person who simply relies on force to make a living. His greatest reliance is his excellent mind, keen political vision and tactical layout ability. If there is really a grudge between the two of them, then the road ahead will be difficult. As for simply letting Bucky go, he walked to Rogers with a smile on his face and said to him with a big smile, "Hey, Captain Rogers, look, who did I bring to you? Your best friend, Bucky Barnes." Oh, you ask why his eyes are dull and he doesn't know anyone? The reason is very simple. He was controlled by Hydra. He participated in the Soviet Winter Soldier Project. You ask what the Winter Soldier Project is for? It is to train a group of super agents to fight and kill. For example, assassinate important American figures, such as Howard Stark and his wife. Well, just think about this scene a little bit. Lee G can be sure that Iron Man Tony will go berserk, and the hatred of killing his father and mother is irreconcilable. Although Tony's relationship with his father is not very good, it is more of a rebellious teenager who wants to attract his father's attention and does various outstanding actions. Although Tony is a playboy, he is essentially a person who pays great attention to feelings. It's just that the women he dumped are not worthy of his emotional investment. Just like Pepper Potts, do you think Tony will get angry at her or make her unhappy? So sandwiched between the two giants of the Illuminati, Lee G has few choices. He needs to prevent these two giants from being unhappy or even breaking up because of a small character like Bucky. This is not good for the relationship between the few people, it is not good for the Illuminati, and it can be said that it is not good for the entire Earth. Lee G looked at Bucky, who was unconscious on the ground, kicked his metal arm and said, "You are lucky, you fainted directly. It is a big trouble to deal with you. If you had died in battle and become a martyr 70 years ago, or if you had not been found by Hydra after being frozen. In other words, if you had not carried out that damn mission to assassinate Howard Stark, then everything would be much easier." Lee G was a little depressed. Bucky, who was unconscious, could not express his opinion, otherwise he would be more depressed, and said, "I was ready to die heroically 70 years ago. Do you think I want to be dug out from the Arctic Circle, trained as a killing weapon, and kill my old friend Howard Stark 70 years ago? This is not my fault." When she appeared silently beside Lee G, she pointed at Bucky on the ground and said, "What should we do with this person?" Lee G shook his head and sighed before saying, "Lock him up first. This is a big trouble. I want to ask if there is a dungeon or something like that in Kamartaki. If this guy is locked up outside, it will be a disaster. You want to lock this person up in Kamartaki?" Lan glanced at Lee G. Is it not possible?" Lee G asked uncertainly. Lan did not answer directly. She shrugged and said, "Then you need to ask Master Ancient One. Kamartaki, the Supreme Sorcerer, is here." Captain Rogers' good friend Bucky Barnes was tied up like a dead dog by the mage's chain. Now he has woken up. Bucky struggled violently, but no matter how much strength he used, it was useless facing Lan's mage's chain. The chain was still tightly trapped on him. The Winter Soldier was like a frantic dog trapped in a cage, frantically trying to break free from the leash that the dog-catching team had put on him. "So, Master Ancient One, this is what happened. So can this Winter Soldier be temporarily fostered here?" Lee G looked at Master Ancient One in a flattering manner. Ancient One looked at Lee G with an as expected expression. "You really have an ulterior motive every time you come to me. There are some dungeons in Kamartaki. They are left behind from when I imprisoned some demons who committed evil on Earth without restraint. Although they haven't been used for hundreds of years, it's not difficult to imprison a wild beast. Ancient One glanced at Buggy. Is this guy controlled and hypnotized? Probably. Li Ji knew that Bucky was hypnotized and forced to become the Winter Soldier, so he asked, "Can you break his hypnosis?" Master Ancient One stared at Bucky for a while. It's not soul hypnosis, nor does it involve the transformation of life forms in consciousness. It looks like the method uses drugs as the main means, unless an antidote is found. Or just wait until the drug wears off. This was an indirect answer. His magic was of no help with this kind of thing. Chapter 622 Newton's Original Works. Li Ji didn't expect magic to solve all problems. Otherwise, as the strongest person on Earth, why didn't Master Guyu do it himself to make the Earth better? Li Ji and the Illuminati did not intend to hide everything from Guyu. Tony had proposed to invite Master Guyu to join the Illuminati at the beginning. It was just that Guyu himself refused. But Guyu saw most of the things the Illuminati did, such as the Battle of New York. Guyu watched the entire broadcast on a tablet computer in Kamartaki. When Thor appeared, even the Supreme Sorcerer, who had always been very serious, couldn't help laughing. Master Guyu still had some expectations for the path that Li Ji and others were going to take. So he was willing to provide such help to Li Ji at the appropriate time. Wang, put this man named Bucky in the dungeon on the bottom level first. It's the room used to imprison a Dark Flame Lord. Supply Bucky with food as usual every day. Guyu asked his personal servants and Kamartaki Library Administrator Wang to take Bucky away. Li Ji wanted to leave at this time, because he had to go back and think about how to solve the problem between Rogers and Tony. Catching Bucky was just the first step. But Lan ran to Ancient One at this time and whispered to him for a while. Ancient One's expression was a little serious at first, and he shook his head at Lan. But Lan continued to whisper in Ancient One's ear. Finally, he pulled Ancient One's sleeve. The Supreme Sorcerer showed an expression that he couldn't do anything to Lan, and said to her, "Remember, be careful. The old rule is that you can't stay too long." He handed Lan a bracelet. Lan smiled heartfeltly and said, "Don't worry." As he said this, he ran to Li Ji's side like a deer and said to him, "Come on, accompany me to the library of Kamartaki." Huh? Li Ji touched his forehead. No wonder Lan laughed so happily just now. I'm afraid it's not his reading addiction again. Anyway, I have to think about how to talk to Rogers and Tony. Li Ji didn't care whether he thought about it at home or in the library of Kamartaki. So he followed Lan to the library of Kamartaki. The collection of books in Kamartaki is extremely rich, although the volume may not be comparable to those of the world's largest or the world's XTH largest library. But the quality of the collection is higher, because in addition to the knowledge left by various mages, even Isaac Newton once came to Kamartaki to study, and left many of his own works. It can be said that the Holy Shield Brotherhood has an unclear relationship with Kamartaki. And some of the books in the Holy Shield Brotherhood were donated by Newton to Kamartaki as a reward for studying in Kamartaki. However, the books written by the Holy Shield Brotherhood, especially Newton, are among the highest level books in the library of Kamartaki. Browsing these books requires approval from Ancient One, because Newton created another path after completing his studies in Kamartaki. This is not something that any mage can understand, just like practicing martial arts secrets. If people with insufficient strength read advanced martial arts secrets or even practice them, they may go astray. Lan applied to Ancient One for permission to browse the books donated by Newton and the Holy Shield Brotherhood. As Lan's direct disciple, he was one of the few people in Kamartaki who could browse these books. In fact, Lan had browsed these books many times, but of course he had not read them all. Because many of the things written by Newton were dizzying, and ordinary people could not learn the five-fold secret arts. Note: in the huge library, Lan led Li Ji to the inner room. The air was filled with the smell of paper and ink. "What book do you want to read today?" Li Ji asked Lan curiously. "Can I take it home after borrowing it?" Lan said as they walked, "Those books cannot be borrowed. Because they are original works written by Isaac Newton. They are about that great scientist and great wizard. His works are obscure and difficult to understand. Just reading them will make you dizzy. Except for Master Guyu, it is difficult for anyone to read the contents after page 20 of his books. You know I love reading. I have an excellent memory and a very fast reading speed. When I was young, I couldn't really learn magic. but I like to read documents. Many documents that other wizards, even Master Gu Yi, didn't pay attention to, became my entertainment when I was a child. Li Ji's throat tightened, but he still didn't make a sound. Lan's hobby is really a little different. Anyway, whether in his previous life or this life, Li Ji's main entertainment activities in his childhood were playing games or cooking. Reading large volumes of documents at the age of 5 or 6 is simply unimaginable for Li Ji. Li Ji glanced at the cheerful Lan. This beautiful girl really won at the starting line of life? Lan did not notice Li Ji's gaze. She continued to lead Li Ji through the arches until she reached the end of the library. A locked room. Lan inserted the bracelet given to her by Master Ancient One into the door of the room. There was a recessed mark on the door, which happened to be used to place the bracelet. The originally closed room was open because of the bracelet. Lan led Li Ji in here. A room much smaller than the library outside. If the outside is the scale of a first-class university library, the room can only be regarded as an ordinary large bookstore on the street. Although it is also quite large, it is still far from comparable to the libraries of first-class universities. Now Li Ji also understands that the place where Lan brought him is probably a more important part of the enigmatic library. So Li Ji asked with some doubt, "Is it okay for me to come here? I heard you say that these are Newton's authentic works, so the books here must be extremely precious, right?" Lan glanced at Li Ji, then cast his gaze on the large bookshelves around him, looking for something. She answered while searching, "It doesn't matter, because I have talked to the wizard. Let's continue with our previous topic. Actually, as I said just now, I have been reading various documents since I was a child. Many of those documents have nothing to do with magic. Most of them are travel records or life memoirs of some wizards. Or some miscellaneous booklets compiled by some people with special hobbies and collections of articles that want to spread their own ideas. And when I was reading these documents, I vaguely remember that a name was mentioned." Lan looked at Li Ji and smiled. "Guess who it is?" Li Ji thought for a while, then spread his hands and said, "I can't guess." "Howard Stark." Lan said a name that surprised Li Ji. In fact, because the memory is so long ago, I almost forgot it. If it weren't for you telling me about the entanglement between Iron Man, Captain America and the Winter Soldier, I guess I wouldn't even remember it. Do you know where I saw this name?" Lan looked at Li Ji, who was a little stunned, and asked again. Li Ji shook his head blankly. Lan smiled again. In some of Isaac Newton's miscellaneous notes, he mentioned Howard Stark's name several times. "Aren't you curious?" Lan looked at Li Ji with sparkling eyes. And Li Ji suddenly felt that maybe there really was some unknown truth hidden in it. P.S. Five-fold secret art. This is a theory that deconstructs the existence of the entire world with 5 levels of understanding. The first level, the power of price. The second level, the hidden art. The third level, the mysterious alchemy. The fourth level, the silent mathematics. The fifth level, the silent truth. The above settings are from Marvel's official Legend of the Shield. Chapter 623, Creating a Family Tragedy. Newton left behind a lot of documents, so many that even Lan had read his records. And he vaguely remembered that the name Howard Stark was mentioned in them. But Li Ji and Lan still needed to carefully search in the huge documents like the sea. This was a complicated process, because Lan was not sure whether she saw it in Newton's book or in the book donated by Newton. So the two had to fight a protracted war in the library of enigmatic. Of course, this world will not stop because of the lack of Li Ji's participation. While Li Ji was frantically flipping through to find out whether there was any secret between Newton and Howard, something else was happening in the outside world. Crossbones Bullock, the #1 thug of Hydra leader Red Skull Schmidt, gathered a group of people to attack a bank vault in Geneva. Originally, because all the people on Bucky's side were arrested, Bullock was a little hesitant, wondering if his intelligence was exposed. He was still worried about whether it would be dangerous to take action. But in the end, nothing happened. Because Li Ji and Lan's actions were just a coincidence, they had no idea that the group of mercenaries they killed just happened to have a big business to do. So they didn't consider torturing these guys. So after Block was nervous for a while and found that there was no other news, he finally decided to take action. Block also blamed the deaths of these mercenaries on the KGB's external hound agents who were carrying out the mission. Because of this group of mercenaries, Moscow issued a kill order. Block's attack on Geneva was quite sudden, but because the direct target was the bank's vault, which stored $2 billion worth of gold. So the defense force was still sufficient. Although it was lost in the end, the only good news was that because the reinforcements came in time, Block's men only robbed less than $300 million in gold and were forced to move. Of course, others didn't know. This robbery in public was just to attract firepower and divert attention. Hydra's real target was the confidential information hidden in Geneva. Some confidential documents about Sentinel. As Dr. Rice said, his plan has never stopped. Especially about how to eliminate mutants. He is as radical as his father. After getting the information of the Sentinels, he began to work overtime to study. Accompanying Dr. Rice in the research is General Stryker, who should have been injected to death long ago. Now Stryker has completely turned to Dr. Rice and Hydra. Since those congressmen who are in office and doing nothing can sacrifice me for a group of mutants and political stability, even deny everything I have done over the years, then let me prove it with reality. Everything I have done is right. Stryker decided to use the aim and the power of Hydra to completely eliminate mutants. He is a complete paranoid. In his worldview, the harm of mutants is much greater than that of Hydra. On the other hand, Red Skull Schmidt finally saw the children of Magneto who were captured. Are these the children of that old bastard? Schmidt pointed to a man and a woman who were imprisoned in a special incubator. They were captured in the 1960s, so they should be in their 50s now, right? Schmidt raised his question. Because the man and woman locked in the incubator looked only in their 20s, which did not match their actual age. Dr. Rice explained, because actually since we first captured this special pair of siblings, our organization has isolated them for cultivation. Because they showed super strong X gene activity when they were infants, they are rare experimental materials. They were placed in the incubator for a long time. In order to prolong their cell activity, we can obtain enough experimental samples and experimental data. Because the culture medium in the incubator inhibits the aging of their bodies. So they look very young, and their body functions are also kept at the peak state of about 20 years old. Dr. Rice's explanation made Schmidt nod. In this case, even if Magneto saw these two people, he would not recognize them as his own children. The age does not match at all. Yes, that's right. Dr. Rice replied immediately. Have you cultivated the abilities of these two people over the years? What abilities do they have? Schmidt asked with a satisfied smile. We have conducted experiments and controlled experiments. The elder sister was named Scarlet Witch by us because she has the ability to modify the probability of things. In simple terms, it can make people choose two when they originally wanted to choose one. A missile that was supposed to fly to the United States may fly to Russia. Dr. Rice explained the abilities of the two. And the younger brother we call Quicksilver, he's extremely fast. He can kill many people just by relying on his speed. According to our test speculation, Quicksilver's speed can reach 500,000 kilometers per hour. And because his speed comes from a special X gene, he will not affect the surrounding environment when he speeds up. However, this speed is not his upper limit. Because he has been locked in the incubator for many years, his X ability has not been fully exercised. If he strengthens his training, he may be able to continue to speed up. Dr. Rice explained the abilities of the brother and sister to Schmidt. Schmidt nodded with great satisfaction, and said to Dr. Rice, let these two people out. I want to train them personally. They will be a powerful weapon against a brotherhood of mutants. A trace of ferocity flashed in Schmidt's skull eyes. Since Magneto wants revenge so much, let him taste the taste of killing each other. Dr. Rice listened to Schmidt's words obediently. In fact, he was also looking forward to it. What would happen if Scarlet, Quicksilver and Magneto had a fight between father and children? If Magneto's children killed quite a few of his fellow members of the Brotherhood of Mutants, how would Magneto deal with it? He gathered his strength to fight against Hydra in order to avenge his parents, wife and children. But when his children became his enemies, can he still maintain his position as the leader of the Brotherhood of Mutants? Even if you relied on tough means to force it, would the people below really have no complaints? Schmidt saw this point. He was going to make this public when Scarlet and Quicksilver killed enough members of the Brotherhood of Mutants. When the father and his children killed each other, and when both the extremists and moderates among the mutants abandoned Magneto, Schmidt would give Magneto the final blow. Decades ago, you were my puppet in experiment. Decades later, you are still the same. The little mutant becoming an old mutant can't change anything. Magneto Eric, the fate waiting for you was actually chosen from the beginning. The Red Skull waved his hand. The operator responsible for controlling the incubator began to prepare to open the incubator. When the culture fluid was extracted from the incubator little by little, fresh oxygen poured into the incubator. The brother and sister, who needed to adapt for a period of time because of the long-term lack of oxygen, coughed violently. The hatch opened and the two were released. Because of the violent coughing, Scarlet and Quicksilver had to lie down and gasp for a while. From today on, I will be your instructor. I will teach you the meaning of survival in this world. Stand up, we are going to start the first class. A pair of feet in leather boots appeared in front of the brother and sister's face. Looking up along the leather boots, it was the face of a Red Skull. P.S. Scarlet Witch's chaos magic is not innate, but acquired. Her mutant ability is to modify probability. After learning chaos magic, the combination of the two gives her the ability to modify reality. Scarlet Witch's most famous achievement is that she said there are no mutants in the world on M-Day, which wiped out hundreds of millions of mutant genes in the world. There are less than 200 people in the world who still have mutant gene abilities. Chapter 624 Everyone's Opinion. For Li Ji, he and Lan didn't know what was going on outside, because for the two of them, the documents left by Newton were the most daunting thing. It was already the 7th day of searching for documents. In the past few days, Li Ji had not appeared at all except for occasionally returning to New York and occasionally showing up in front of friends and family. In addition to Lan's similar absence, rumors about them spread among friends. A Spider-Man who did not want to be named said, "Elope. Definitely eloped. I have a lot of experience in love. From my personal experience, they must have eloped for some reason. The specific reason may not be easy to say. It may be that some people often disturb them, making them feel annoyed and have the idea of temporarily escaping New York." A guy who did not want to be named and flew around in New York City on Spider Silk continued. He seemed to have forgotten who insisted on going to see the movie A Dog's Purpose with the two of them. Life is a journey you can go on whenever you want. Just like I traveled thousands of miles to London to chase my girlfriend. This is life, this is love. The Spider-Man who did not want to be named sighed. He said it as if he had come up with the idea of flying to London. In the Illuminati base, we interviewed Mr. Steve Rogers, the captain of the world, about his opinion on this matter. First of all, we would like to congratulate Captain Steve Rogers on becoming the leader of SWORD. And now many netizens have called out your new title, Captain of the World. We congratulate you here. You are so polite. I am unworthy of the title of Captain of the World. I haven't done anything yet. But since everyone has such expectations of me, I will work harder in the future. Captain of the World Steve Rogers said modestly. Speaking of the disappearance of Nightcrawler and Master Lan together, I don't think this is a simple elopement or affair. Although Nightcrawler seems to be very unskilled in doing things, he is very serious about this matter. I think he must be doing something. For example, he is making plans for the future of mankind. He always does all kinds of big things quietly. I don't know what is hidden in his mind, and what kind of wild ideas he always has. Captain of the World said very seriously, as if it were true. What? Do you suspect that I have political adulation or political bribery? Of course not, I am telling the truth. It is not because Nightwalker went to Sotheby's auction house to buy back my comic manuscripts from more than 70 years ago. What I said today has nothing to do with the comic manuscripts. Captain Rogers of the World is really an upright person. By the way, Mr. Captain of the World, let me talk about your comic manuscripts. I once heard an interesting story. When the art thief Black Cat Felici got the news that your comic manuscripts had been seen again, she wanted to steal the manuscripts from the owner of the manuscripts. But according to the information I got, Black Cat had succeeded at that time. And saw the manuscripts, but she threw the manuscripts on the ground after watching them for about 30 seconds, and left cursing. Do you think Black Cat disrespects you for treating your paintings like this? Or does she not understand real art at all? Captain Rogers of the World. Captain, can you talk? Captain, hey. Captain, don't leave. Ahem. The captain still has a lot of things to do, please let's move the camera. This is a special group, the two youngest among Nightcrawler's companions. Both are newcomers who have recently become famous in the New York vigilante organization. Hit Girl and Wolf Girl from the Extraordinary Twins. Let's first ask Hit Girl's opinion. Laura, what else do you want to eat recently? Miss Hit Girl Mindy didn't look at the camera. She talked to her companions on her own, We have eaten all the special small shops on the East Coast recently. Wolf Girl Laura didn't care about the camera either, but answered Mindy's words, is it not good for us to order Sam, the rising star, the toilet head boy, like this? You have already had 50 excuses to test how fast he can fly and let him run errands and buy things. Hit girl, Mindy said nonchalantly, he doesn't care, and doesn't he eat with us every time? I gave him a tip as a delivery fee. Mindy waved her little fist to show that she was not exploiting the labor of others, but paid a salary. But in front of the camera, Laura exposed her without hesitation. You mean to give him $15 to buy fried chicken worth $13.80, and then the remaining $1.20 will be used as the courier fee for flying over a distance of 300 kilometers? Even the food delivery app doesn't have such a cheap courier fee. Hey, what are you talking about? There's a camera here. Mindy pointed at the camera and said fiercely, what are you filming? Did I agree with you to film? Hurry up and turn off the camera. Otherwise, hey. Ahem, all the above content is cut out, cut out. Let's find materials again. Oh, I saw some good interviewees. Punisher Frank, Big Daddy Damon, Wolverine Logan. Let's interview this group of mature men. What do you think about? Laura must go to school, Logan. At the wine table, Frank slammed the table and yelled at Logan. It seemed that he had drunk a lot of wine and his face was red. This is not your era, Logan. As an illiterate, you could live easily in your time. But are you going to make Laura illiterate too? Frank's words made Logan fall into deep thought. After a while, he said, but Xavier's school for gifted people has closed down. Where can Laura go to school? Damon, the Big Daddy, said, she can go to the school where Mindy goes to school. I see they get along well. She can stay with us when she goes to school in New York. I don't mind raising another daughter. Damon's words made Logan a little moved. He knew Mindy. It was good that Mindy didn't bully others. Especially Mindy was more tactful and more likable than Laura. If Laura went to the same school as Mindy and Mindy took care of Laura, then it was not impossible for Laura to go to school. Frank saw that Logan was a little moved, so he struck while the iron was hot and said, Logan, Laura still needs to go to college in the future. Otherwise, it will be more difficult for her to find a job and a boyfriend in the future. She needs to get in touch with a good enough boy. Logan, who had originally practiced a Vajra rage provided by Lee Ji with one finger to make his anger particularly stable and no longer get angry easily, suddenly stretched out his Vajra claws, and swish. The stainless steel wine table was instantly divided into 4. If your boyfriend dares to touch Laura's hair in the future, I will let him know what dad's love means. Logan's tone was calm, but a little scary. Oh, dear audience friends, let's not disturb the three fathers' discussion on education. Ah, by the way, there is another important person we haven't interviewed yet. Let's interview the world-class billionaire, who is also the scientific advisor of the SWOR Bureau, Mr. Iron Man Tony Stark. Tony in front of the camera has a charming smile, worthy of being a man living under the spotlight. Mr. Iron Man, what do you think about the disappearance of Nightwalker and Storm Master recently? Sorry about this. I have to take a call first. Tony Stark's phone happened to ring. Tony pressed the answer button. Hello. It's me, Tony. It was Nightcrawler on the other end of the phone. Oh, you still call me. I thought you went to the Maldives to enjoy the blue sea and sky with Lan, and admire her bikini posture. Tony was very excited when he spoke. I thought so. Nightcrawler on the other end of the phone rolled his eyes. I need your help with something. Tell me, what is it? I want to see the notes left by your father. Chapter 625 The Hidden Truth. What? You want to see the notes left by my father? Tony Stark was a little dissatisfied with Lee Ji's request on the other end of the phone. You have to know that this is private and private. Tony, I am not very interested in the things your father left for you. Lee Ji's voice on the other end of the phone sounded quite calm. I am just a little curious about some things about the Brotherhood of S.H.I.E.L.D. About the ins and outs and origins of this mysterious organization. And the alien invasion they once mentioned. I really want to see it. Tony held the phone and thought for a while. As the original inspirer of the Illuminati, Nightwalker has always had a good relationship with Iron Man. Even for Tony, Nightwalker is the hero he can trust the most. Because there is no messy power behind Nightwalker, he lives more purely. According to Nightwalker, I am just doing what I want to do, and the rest has nothing to do with me. This kind of free and easy Iron Man can't learn. Although Tony looks like a playboy on the surface, he still has a lot of baggage in his heart. After thinking for a long time, Tony finally replied, "Then I will sort it out and show you notes about my father. But I will keep all the private parts." "No problem, I am not interested in the privacy of your family." The night walker on the other end of the phone replied briskly. After hanging up the phone, Li Ji made an okay gesture to Lan. "Done, we can see if there is any relevant record in Howard Stark's notes." Lan nodded to Li Ji. Lan, who was sitting on the floor, was surrounded by books. "They have been searching here for more than a week. These are all large physical books. Not those electronic books. You only need to quietly search for keywords on the keyboard to get the information you want. These books are as heavy as concrete bricks, and you need to flip through them page by page. It is not an easy task to search for the keyword, Howard Stark, in the sea of information." Li Ji's level of reading and searching is just that of an ordinary person. Lan, who has a natural reading habit, performs very well in this regard. She can read books at a glance. And she can also quickly browse the details. Therefore, the real search work was almost all done by Lan, and Li Ji could only help out. Then he took care of Lan's diet and life during this period. Lan stood up, stretched her body, and her whole body made crackling sounds. Li Ji walked to Lan's side, pinched her shoulders and said, "Thank you for your hard work. Do you need a massage?" Li Ji pressed Lan's shoulders a few times while speaking. The strength was just right, just stimulating Lan, whose muscles were a little stiff due to maintaining the same posture for a long time. Because it was very comfortable, Lan couldn't help but hum from her nose. "You are quite skilled? Do you often massage girls?" "I swear to God, absolutely not." Li Ji immediately declared his innocence. "Then how come you are so skilled?" Lan was a little suspicious. Li Ji shrugged and said, "You know, sometimes ingredients also need to be massaged before cooking. For example, properly kneading steak can soften its meat. And if you don't massage the octopus when making octopus sashimi, the meat will be too hard for people to eat. So do you think of me as a steak or an octopus?" Lan picked up her long hair and looked back at Li Ji. "Well, you can't compare like that. You are much more precious than steak or something." Li Ji smiled and helped Lan to massage her shoulders twice. While Li Ji was massaging Lan to relax his muscles, Lan also turned out several places about Howard Stark that he found in the vast literature. These are all books written by Newton himself, which are very precious and cannot be destroyed. So Lan used magic to mark an erasable red line on the pages. Among so many documents, there are 3 places that mention Howard Stark. The first one, the clock may have an error, but what exactly is wrong with it? There is nothing wrong with the design of my mentor Galileo Galilei. I'm a little upset, but I still need to meet Howard Stark. This is the first one. Newton mentioned that some kind of clock error upset him. But he still needs to meet Howard. It looks like a very normal essay. The clock may be his experimental tool, or a synonym for some kind of prop. In the second place, plans are always full of twists and turns, whether it is experiments or other things. The more I know, the more I find my ignorance. Howard is also full of resistance to my plan, which is bad. From this note, Howard seems to be Newton's assistant in one of his experiments. This is normal, because in his era, he was one of the best scientists in the world. And as a member of the Shield Brotherhood, it is normal for Newton to summon Howard and ask him to provide experimental assistance. But I don't know what experiment Howard is resisting. In the third place, everything is normal. I hope everything can run as usual. Today's cooperation with Howard is quite pleasant. But time is running out, I need to leave first. From this record, Howard finally cooperated with Newton's experiment. And the two worked happily together. Newton left for some reason, maybe went somewhere. So what happened between Howard and the Holy Shield Brotherhood? Li Ji is very interested. This is not just about Howard's personal relationship. Because Newton was the leader of the previous Holy Shield Brotherhood, where was he when the Holy Shield Brotherhood was destroyed? Or what role did he play in this event that destroyed the hidden elites of all mankind? Li Ji was very curious, so he asked Tony for Howard's notes before his death. Because all that Newton had recorded before was in one of his essays, not a book written independently. The records in the essays are very messy. It contains fragmentary records of his personal food, clothing, housing and transportation, as well as some local customs and experiences that he thinks are special. The most of them are records of weather. Li Ji found it very strange that in the 18th century, Newton's full-page weather records were almost all heavy rains for several consecutive months, or continuous sun exposure for several consecutive months. Is there a place with this kind of climate on Earth? Li Ji was deeply skeptical. So when he took back a pile of Howard's personal notes from Tony, Li Ji and Lan were once again caught in a sea of searching. Li Ji wanted to know if Howard had also recorded any news about Newton. But during this search, a word appeared that caught Li Ji's attention. That was D, which was exactly the same as the word on Li Ji's pendant. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.